Yo.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most.
We're still here!
Bastards. Let us make them remember. We are not afraid!
Yeah. This is the one thing that we've done not be afraid, is to decentralize from the systems. We had, today we had to restart the show, and we'll kind of summarize it for you and do you a favor. Because there was I use Linux in the studio for just this reason. I'll go a year without having to update anything. And Linux is starting to get, kind of problems. Apple, certainly sure as hell, Microsoft, Windows and so on. We are so controlled. The platforms are controlled. Where you store your data is controlled. Everything that we've done has been to have our own servers, do interplanetary file sharing, file system, IPFS, so that you can't edit, delete, destroy, censor the MP4, the videos. Because of all the platforms we've been on before YouTube was selected as, the main one when Google bought them up. They didn't used to be the most popular until Google got them. And you eliminate competition. You have Zoom, which is Chinese. You got, there's other video platforms that we've tried. It was a Jitsi and, some others stream this and that and so on. So there's alternatives, and it's been to our advantage because I don't have the big giant IT system at my fingertips sitting next to me to take care of. I got to do it. Well, I have friends and people that are supporters that help set things up. But it's like 2 hours today after an update of going through and now all the guests I have planned for the next week and a half. We got to get them the right link to get in to do. It's a thing. And it's almost like it's intentional. So we've made ourselves robust to be able to bypass a lot of these controls, because when's it going to matter? Super Bowl time, whatever the Super Bowl is. The thermonuclear, we got to have election cycle of coming riots in the street of the four horsemen mounting up in the zombie apocalypse of whatever the hell. And how are you going to be able to communicate? How are you going to be able to do trade? How are you going to be able to inform your friends, family, neighbors? How? Because all of these systems are there to control you, to get you on board, to have the paradigm be whatever the hell it is they say. The zeitgeist is the general public opinion. Now, we went a half hour or more before we had to restart it. It just got to be a thing with Phranq losing connection on Zoom and so on. But his main thing was Epstein. The Epstein list, that was a promise, and where's the Epstein files? What's all with all this distraction? There's all this other stuff that's going on that we're not getting, access to the information because why? Well, one of the things that's going on, I just want to show you, get you up to speed here real quick, is that they have a list that they're going to be doing hearings. Now, what is it they're calling this thing? The subpoenas have been issued to 10 big-name politicians and deep state operatives, compelling them to appear for depositions in the coming weeks. The House Oversight Committee, blah, blah, blah. Now, keep in mind, this is what Navarro, I think, went to jail for because he refused to show up, and Steve Bannon, and they arrested him. You're not going to appear? Well, we're going to arrest you. Why? Because we can arrest you. Are these guys going to appear? They're going to get arrested. You know, good for the goose, good for the gander kind of deal. Well, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attorney generals. 6 attorney generals, Obama and Trump administration, bring in the attorney generals. Then you have the FBI director, Comey. You have Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton. And then finish it off October 14th with President Bill Clinton to talk about what? I might get some Epstein list in there, but it's all about, you know, Pizzagate and, you know, the files that they made up. Now, we went through in 2008. Eric Holder was in charge of the online trolling. We got this here newfangled internet thing that's going to have a big impact on the election, so we got to have somebody in charge of it. Goes into the White House. He's Attorney General, and they brought in their little troll army into the White House. They were there doing, and we had our own. I can't remember the Nita or Nana something. You know, I was on Freeman's Phoenix. We were her project, and all of us, we're a bunch of actors. We knew, we could tell. We just, you know, kind of shine her on and let her do it. Didn't have to delete her or nothing. You know, just let her do her thing. So we all know this, right? I mean, everybody can see what's going on here, right? Okay. So this was a example of it's coming. I was talking to Luke Radowski at Ron Paul's 90th birthday party a couple weeks ago in Lake Jackson, Texas, and I'm going, all right, before we start going on, because we have, you know, squatting interest on all of these different platforms. We got Freedom's Phoenix, we got the show, we got Occupy. We've done that from the beginning, make sure we get it, nobody else does. Whether I don't use it. I have Facebook journey. I go, that was your first mistake because I don't look. You know, like Donna does every now and then. Oh, this person kind of, oh, cool, you know. But I don't waste brain cells on that stuff. So what happened was, I go, how's it going? How's the metrics doing? How's the algorithms? He goes, it's opened up quite a bit. You know, it's doing a lot better for now. Because he knows when it gets Super Bowl time, they're going to come cracking down again. Because, you know, all the guys that, you know, Phranq's favorites, you know, MSNBC, you know, Tim Pool and Dr. Turley. We should get Dr. Turley on again, Steve Turley. I enjoy talking to him. We'll do that again. But the one thing is they are controlled by how they reward their shows. And you can tell what the future is going to be by what is rewarded and what's punished. That's how they control. And sure as heck, with money. Influence. Are you an influencer or not? When we push this button, you're not. Oh, they don't do that anymore. They'd stop that. Right. Sydney Sweeney comes out and, you know, and I got good, you know, blue jeans and blue eyes and blonde hair and busty babe and come in left freaks. Then they come out with Cracker Barrel. Nah, we're going to take away the rocking chairs and the old man and, you know, and the farm implements and the conservative life, you know, kind of promotion of, you know, whoa! And people freaked. Then they come out with a, you know, apology. Well, we could have done that. We're kind of sort of backpedaled, kind of something, lost $100 million on stock value, so we're going to change our mind a little bit. They change the people? No. You know, it's the same thing. You know, Disney's now coming out. They'll still do woke crap. They'll just try and have intellectual property of, Buzz Lightyear won't be gay anymore or something. I mean, it's just freaking. It's not over. It's not even near over. So then when you have Trump comes out and he's like, you know, what are we going to do? I think what we're going to do is, that's what I think we're going to do. We're going to start filing RICO charges on Soros. We're going to start going after these guys colluding to produce violence on America's streets along with the Gates Foundation. You know, I'm like, we're going to go get some. So what's going to happen? Now Trump demands FCC revoke broadcasting licenses of the biased networks ABC and NBC. Well, what's your criteria? I mean, the fact that you even have a license. You know, I I had this conversation with, a woman, Tiffany Cianci. She's private equity funds. She can see how these they're buying up, do a hostile takeover. It's kind of like Pretty Woman. They buy up the company, they liquidate everything, they sell up everything, the carcass up, make a bunch of money, and we're done. They'll destroy, but never make anything. So this is what she ran across, came up against, and the solution. And she and I really like her. We met her at Ron Paul's thing. She's got enormous support from people. She's exposing a lot of good stuff. And what's the solution? Well, we got to support. We got to vote. I mean, that's the first thing. Got to vote. The incumbents got to vote. And I go, well, you got to fix that first. And then we need to have legislation to where corporations can't this and they can't that and do this. And I'm going, damn. She goes, I used to be libertarian until I found out libertarians don't want to do all the you have tos and can'ts, and so I'm not libertarian anymore. And I'm going, yeah, this is So it was a great show. But it was just so, you're still voting? So I'm not for voting. I can't see that as a solution. So the solution that we need, that we have, that is an opportunity for us, is to understand that the entire system is being fed by our life force, by us breathing in and out, by us participating, by us being in, lockstep in the system of, there's a system and you're in it, but they got a little private club inside that system and you ain't in it. You're just exploited. So I did a show, Doug Casey wrote a book called The Preparation, and it was for young men. It's a 16-step, learn to sail, go around the Straits of Magellan, be a cowboy. 3 months on everything. Learn, Muay Thai in Thailand. Take a welding class. Get different languages. I mean, on and on and on. And his partner that he does a podcast with, Matt Smith, has a 20-year-old son, Maxim. Now, about 3-4 years ago, we had interviewed him a few times as he started his own podcast from a young man that was a conservative during the middle of COVID and all this kind. It was very interesting. Well, he's turned into a, accomplished young man, and they can afford to send him whatever Ivy League college, super Yale secret handshake club, whatever they want. But they decided, no, we're going to take a fraction of that money and fund real world education. And it produced this big book called The Preparation. So we're going to be promoting that and working with them on making sure that gets a lot of attention by the Liberty community, because I can see that is the solution. That. And here's the show that I did with Doug, and then I did the show with Maxim, and you should go look at those shows, because I'm telling you, man, damn. This is the future, and the controls that they have on trying to convince you what is and is not important is where the problem is. So when I'm talking to Tiffany, as much as I loved her, I mean, a great woman, really put forth a lot of effort doing some whip ass and how the system really works. And I'm going, the problem fundamentally that I see, and Phranq and I go out and he's kind of becoming a little bit more tolerant of my view, is that the problem is we keep delegating our authority to other people, other institutions, flags, governments, pieces of paper, parties, individuals that we are supposed to take care of ourselves. We're doing the preparation thing. When are you a man? Now, where's that transition? 16, you get a driver's license. You have sex, now you're a man. You get somebody pregnant, now you're a man. You get married, now you're a man. When are you a man? And I'll tell you, from experience, it's when you take responsibility and provide for a family. When you continue on the species. When you go forth and multiply. When you are autonomous, self-actuating, individual liberty, self-responsibility. Man, I definitely check off the box. You made it. You're a man. When are you a woman? Same thing. It's a team. You can't have babies without a woman. And what's their responsibility? Whatever it takes, how you do that. You know, who makes more money or who's in charge, brings home the bacon, you know, fries it up in a pan. I mean, I don't care. I made my own bacon last night. Donna, you know, left for a couple of days. She'll be back, and I got to do my own bacon. Damn it. So this is a basic, fundamental thing, and we are so manipulated and controlled. So, the Trump report. Why the Trump report? It's not really about Trump. It's about authority. And what's he doing? Ooh, he's bringing them in. He's bringing them in. He's bringing in, you know, the National Guard. Here comes the National Guard. They're going to take and what's MSNBC complaining about? They got people in uniform in D.C. and they're picking up trash. Good. Somebody do it. Well, it's this. They go to Pete Hegseth, you know, Secretary of Defense, and they say, hey, is this your militarization, refurbing, doing kind of, you know, kick butt kind of stuff is out there with trash bags picking up trash? Hell yeah. You know, they're just serving the public, taking care of business, cleaning up what, you know, it could easily be argued, you know, that, you know, because then they go, well, they had like, I don't know, 20,000, some ridiculous number of park employees that were supposed to do it that weren't doing it. So they cut it. Trump goes, nah, we're down to a couple thousand guys can't pick up trash and we got other problems. Well, they weren't. They didn't. They're government employees. They're kind of, you know, pretending to work. Or hell, they're, you know, the trash picker up people were working from home somehow. So it's just so many layers of bullshit, of lies, of incompetence. And then you got to go, well, you know, to corruption, you probably attribute a bunch of stuff to just stupidity. Well, how much stupidity is just corruption? How much? Don't care. I'm just so done with it. I don't care. I don't care. Because I don't care. Because if you care, it's like you think you can fix it. You can't fix it. The four horsemen are mounting up. There's going to be war, which is going to create famine, which is going to create pestilence, disease and such, and then death. The four horsemen are mounting up. And what's the solution? Decentralization down to the community, the family, the individual, and a Yankee know-how ingenuity of you are responsible for you. When that happens, then you'll have joy. You'll have satisfaction. You'll have individual and personal fulfillment because you're in control of your happenstance, the pursuit of happiness, how you're living. During all the lockdowns, during all the food inflation, during all the... Who's sitting pretty? Amish. You know, their families are probably, you know, tighter, happier, you know, productive, not as susceptible to supply chain, blah, 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 blah. Are they happier? Really? Is that the goal? You know, is it? I don't know. But it's definitely an example you need to look at. And when they start producing food that they're making available in the form of raw milk, healthy grass-fed meats, nope, not allowed. Got the U.S. government to stop that. Put an end to that. You're so freaking not that. So what's the solution? They go in, they get a bunch of Amish to put on Trump flags and go vote. Is that beneficial? Or is that the beginning of the end? In the late 70s, early 80s, you had the moral majority. You had this, you know, born-again Christian thing. It was part of the Carter-Reagan campaign. And they go to Reagan, are you born again? Are you a born again? Say it. Say it. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, I believe in Christ as Savior. You know, I'm good. No, you didn't say it right. And I remember the idea is that you answer to a higher authority, you take care of you and your family. Politics is like, ew, don't get involved in that kind of stuff, certainly not as a church. And then here it came. Nope, you got to get the church involved. You got to get. Well, then what happened? A decade and a half later, You got the Clinton administration. You get into Baby Bush and all this faith-based initiatives. The church, you give us your database, and we'll give you, a little bit of money. We'll put you in charge of some of the charity. We'll do that. See, it's always control. Everything is control. Did you agree? Did you totally agree? I'm not a robot. You agreed. You totally agreed. You go get a massage, and they rape you. They go, this is one of Tiffany's stories. It was Massage Envy. Because you signed in and totally agreed to the arbitration of whatever, you don't go to court. You can't go to the media. You can't do it. Hundreds of people getting raped, and the entire franchise was protected because when you signed to get your massage, you agreed to a whole bunch of crap to not hold them responsible. Where's the responsibility? Where's the accountability? People are screaming accountability. Are you going to get some accountability? They're going to have these people come up, and while Bolton is, wringing his hands, and they went through Melania's, top underwear drawer. Then they go after him. What you got to say about it now? It's just drama. I don't care. That's not where the change is coming from. It's going to be a food thing. It already is. People cannot afford, or it may not even be available. Was anything available in the Soviet? Absolutely. You'd get whatever the hell you wanted. If you had a contact, if you had the money, if you had the resources, if you had, I'm part of the club. They don't care. They were taking care of them. What about the populace? So when I do this solution of occupy the land, that incorporates a whole bunch of stuff. It insulates you from these controls. That is the point. You are not going to change the devil. You go change, dancing with him, you don't change him. He changes you. Stop. Everything we're going to go on today, stop. Think about it. Quit delegating your authority, control over your life, your families, to the promise of somebody else during a campaign. And all you're seeing is a campaign. To what? I don't know, but it's a campaign. I don't care. But Phranq does. What do you care about, Phranq?
What I care about is the Epstein deal, and I'm going to be talking about that. I'm very frustrated about this whole situation. Now, audience, well, first off, welcome back to the Trump Report and More Torture. And for some of you who tuned in early, I'm sorry about all the tech issues or what have you. Assuming it was tech. As far as I'm concerned, even more, it could have been the deep state on top of it. But let's not rabbit hole right. There are some topics I want to get into later. A big one, of course, is the firing from Donald Trump of the Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. I also want to talk about the upcoming, or apparently what is speculated, the Mar-a-Lago Accords, which I've been hearing about for almost 6 months.
Okay, Phranq, don't worry. I'm just stopping the feed, the camera feed to you on purpose. I'm just stopping the camera feed so that,
so we
it
have that.
Bandwidth.
Also,
Go ahead.
Sure. Thanks. So we'll be chatting about that. There's definitely quite a bit of economic news and the strategy. I'd like to talk with Ernie back and forth a bit about, our opinions, at least what we can glean of what the strategy, what the Great Reset strategy is, which seems to be, being illuminated through the Trump official and his actions. There's also Trump himself I want to talk about, which is his health. Some of you know I am a physician. I play doctor by day, at least I attempt. I know a few things about medicine, and I had noticed President Trump looking very ill about 3.5, 4 months ago. Now, when you're a doctor, you kind of pick this out when a patient comes back to see you and you're seeing them in the waiting room. Certain things stand out when you get to know these patients. And, suddenly my doctor's spidey sense went on. It's a few months ago. So there's something wrong with Trump. And my better half didn't quite catch it at first. And then all of a sudden, the thing with the hand, and I talked about it on the show, and not many people even commented on it. And now it's starting to go more viral. So, it's, I don't know. There might be an issue with President Trump even finishing out his term. Then we're dealing with an advance, perhaps in a very early part of this administration. That is a whole loaded topic. I don't think people are even considering
Peter
yet.
Thiel. That's who we're going to be dealing with.
And then also Ernie and I had exactly, yeah. Peter Thiel will be the VP. Then Ernie and I, maybe at the end, if we have time, if we're not yelling at each other too much, we actually had a hot date. Just Ernie and I went to the movies and sharing popcorn. But we saw some movies, and there's some interesting comments or commentary to make about the movies that we saw, and international. Anyway, some of the international markets. We'll talk about that briefly. But I want to go back to Epstein, and I could. So I'm trying. It was only about 8.5 minutes, but I felt fairly succinct and I think well articulated commentary over the Epstein situation, how I feel about it now, how it involves the Trump administration, because this is all about Trump. We call it the Trump Report for a reason, and it's not, of course, just about Trump. There's much packed into it. But to me, but just think of it in this perspective. We've spent 10 years, a decade, Ernie and I arguing over politics and Trump and whether it matters and this and that. Now, I'm not, Ernie can do what he wants. I don't think he's claiming a victory over me yet, although I'm certainly a little closer to his camp, so I'll give Ernie points. But at the same time, after 10 years of supporting the president, or at least the movement, I have soured big time over this whole Epstein deal. So I think it's a very important issue, especially for many people in the show, because not everyone, I mean, our audience, I'm just going to assume is somewhat split, leaning a little bit more my way or your way. We're all in the same family as far as how we look at the world generally, but, I'm sure that's out there with this audience. But at least for me, if people are using me as a canary in the coal mine, and I get told that by people as well, all I know is after no matter what it was, I supported this movement, and Ernie and I both, and many of us out there, have sacrificed. We've been hit up by the feds or other consequences, or many of us losing family members or what have you over this entire journey. For me to finally turn on this and not believe or trust or follow what this administration is doing on just a 180-degree turn, that to me is significant. That is an issue. That is not an issue that Ernie, I don't think he meant to be disrespectful about it. He's like, I'm just going to summarize for Phranq. No, I will summarize for myself. But to sit there and comment with one sentence, Phranq opened the show about Epstein. Epstein sucks, and let's move on about other things. To me, that I know Ernie didn't mean it this way. I mean, Ernie may be maybe a fill-in candidate for Donald Trump. You guys still talk about Epstein? All right, let's talk about something else now. I mean, it's like the same thing, and I'm hearing it from my friend Ernie. Now, I know Ernie's probably not been co-opted by the deep state. I'll kind of take a gander on that one. But that's on top of the fact that after my 8.5-minute rant, then all of a sudden the thing gets disconnected in a very strange way, and even Ernie himself comes back on the show and reintroduces the show of how we got disconnected and you have to be independent, and those want to control you and they can deep six your show. And I'm like, all right, we were just talking about the Mossad and AIPAC and Israel and Epstein and this whole conspiracy. They're doing everything to deep six this thing, including, mysteriously our show goes. And I'm not going to go that far to say, Ernie's definitely having some tech issues. I get it. But man, oh man, my blood's boiling over this. It was the whole concept. The whole point is that from day one, this topic has been, as I said, the final boss of a conspiracy. And I know there's other problems. I'm sure we even have bigger problems that America has been part of that we don't even know about, that they've done a good job, and I'm sure some of you out there know even bigger conspiracies, and I'm not going to argue with it. But what's unique about this Epstein deal is that it involves both parties, or a large part of our government, the Fifth Estate, whether you look at the other estate as the media or Israel, AIPAC, regardless, it involved It's not just one party. It's not a Bill Clinton doing cigars in the Oval Office kind of scandal, which is stupid. But I mean, this involves so much, right? On number one, it exposes our foreign policy. It exposes all the endless wars that Ron Paul people were all about. Stop the wars. Well, how do you stop them when our government is co-opted through extortion? Right? I mean, it just this gets into so many areas, right? So, and then to see the way they're trying to turn it off after this man wound up winning, it shows you the power of this machine. So to me, nothing else really matters if we can't at least settle this. Now, am I really expecting suddenly all the so-called files come out and we finally have perp walks? No, at this point, no, I don't. So I want to be clear. I'm not trying to, Ernie might think, oh, geez, Phranq just still doesn't understand how corrupt this is. He's sitting back, banging his head, waiting for, the nice congressional hearing and everything is exposed and justice prevails. At this point, no, because it's clear that they don't want this. They don't want the justice. So I feel, like Ernie often says, is make them say it. I want to force them in the corner and hold their feet to the fire. And so when they throw these distractions, I'm calling it out. And it's worth calling out, not to take the damn bait. And that's, to me, what this whole thing is about. Ernie opened the show with, he did his monologue, which he does, it was fine. And then he asked me what I thought about the new, the possible, the threats against George Soros, and there might be investigation, and maybe, oh my God, George Soros part of the RICO charges and all this. And sounds great, but you know what? Don't care. I don't care. I don't care, because it goes back to Epstein. And I was pointing out the pattern, how we all know the pattern, and how they promised everything, and then suddenly, they play these games with the files, with the influencers in the beginning of the administration, and they keep, it's on our desk, and then something else, they kick it down, and there's obviously a lot of internal fighting between Don Bongino and Bondi and all of this. I mean, it'd be fascinating to know what's really going on. But clearly they don't want it out. And then when Trump did his infamous, "You still talking about it?" he basically just self-immolated himself, a mortal wound with a big chunk of his base. And I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know. Is it a quarter? Is it a third? I mean, it's not most of it. I think a lot of people don't get it or they don't care for different reasons. But I think it's a very influential and significant part. And I think it's important because if you don't have this settled, then there's not going to be any trust with any other conspiracy or anything else that comes out. And it's shadowing everything. Also, do I expect justice, as I said? No. But to Ernie should be excited, because if this is turning off Phranq Tamburri, who's got a Trump at his house, stand up, that Ernie gave me, by the way. But I took it down as an example. So if you want the change, this topic is part of the change. Now, Ernie might say it doesn't matter, it's going to happen anyway, and I agree. I mean, the world is going to go the way it is. Either you figure it out, or you hang on, or you're late to the party, and you're part of the culling. Thank you, Bob Anderson. I think he's the one that kind of coined that with Ernie and I. But I mean,
great calling
so yeah, you got to things are going to unfold the way they are. Yes. So they're going to unfold the way they're going to. But if you want people to finally stop voting harder, which is an oversimplification of what many of us do, including myself. It's not that I don't get the trappings and the fraud in voting and everything. It's just some of us, like Mark Dice famously says, we're not stupid, but we're going to keep riding this thing till the wheels fall off, which is another version of make them say it, right? Force the cheating so bad by challenging it that you expose them more and more. And that's how, to me, you make the movement. Not just, dropping out and saying, the rest of you suck, I'm just going to do my own thing, which you could do. But I want to help in my version of trying to, for activism and for advancing freedom and liberty, it's to, we don't have it. And one way of doing it is working through their system, but pushing it up to the envelope and forcing it, exposing where these cracks or chasms are. And the Epstein deal is the ultimate chasm. And if you're losing people like me and a big chunk of the MAGA base, that is profoundly significant for, Trump's political career, for the MAGA movement, but also for people who even will bother voting. People that Ernie keeps saying still voting. Well, you know what? The Epstein thing is, if anything, is enough for me to say, all right, I give up. I'm done. All right. Now, you think that would be pretty? Ernie would go, oh, wow, well, this Epstein thing, it took long enough. But if that's what these Johnny-come-latelys all like, let's talk more about Epstein, then I win, right? Instead, Ernie, not meaning to, when I'm doing a Donald Trump, nothing to see here. I'll summarize for it, no big deal, nothing, right? But to me, for a lot of the audience, this is an issue. So I'll wind it down in about a couple minutes, Ernie, not in one sentence. But I think when Ernie asked about the George Soros, what triggered me with this, and I don't get triggered often about anything, was the pattern with this, right? Where suddenly Trump says there's nothing to see here, and then this thing blows up in his face, which was what I'm shocked is that he was shocked. I mean, that to me says a lot about is he in touch or not, or how much of a need did he take to some foreign government to do it? Like these are just numerous questions all come out of this. So then at the end of the beginning of the month, as we know, Thomas Massie, who was becoming more and more of a hero, I think Thomas Massie might really start looking like a presidential candidate within his lifetime. Maybe not next time, but very, very possibly. I think if we start to see a third party or a true reorientation of our country, I could see Massie maybe with a moderate Democrat combo ticket, not to get a little voting thing again, but I see the movements moving towards someone like him. But anyway, so he and Senator Akana from California introduced that bill to make Congress say it regarding exposing Epstein when Trump wouldn't. And so they put a bill on the floor to make everyone vote about forcing the government to show whatever they have on Epstein, right? They had to redo the bill once for some technical thing. But anyway, so Congress that had a lot of work to do was discharged early, conveniently, so that none of them had to be on that vote. And I said about half of them, or however many, went off to Israel on their vacation time, which I'm sure is time well spent, and they come back, and then they had a whole month to help extinguish this issue. And so immediately Congress is jettisoned, and then they turn around and they say, oh, well, let's talk about, here's throwing more red meat, about Russiagate. And then even Ernie was talking about Russiagate a little bit today, which is fine. But to me, I don't care because even though it's an important issue, this is the worst time to do it, right? It undermines the significance and profundity of what that represents from the prior administration, future administrations, and how our country works or doesn't work. But the fact they have to use that exposure to cover Epstein says a lot. You'd think it might be the opposite way. But when they're using Russiagate to cover, which is Russiagate itself has a lot of duplicitousness and corruption and involves deep state actors, and yet they're using that to cover the Epstein story. That puts even more light on what are they hiding, right? So they want to throw that red meat to the base, and I don't think it worked. I think some people, they took it, most didn't. But you have the summer, Congress isn't there to vote on it, and there's no more new info coming out. They did a good job of let's not talk about it, and there's nothing to talk about. And I commented also right before I got disconnected that I find myself in the same boat that some other podcasters do. I mentioned Tim Pool, Turley, a few others, but not to compare it to them, but they have a problem because they are on YouTube, the thing that Ernie learned not to do because all of the trappings that go with it. But with YouTube, you need to keep up in the algorithm to keep, the same level of views and not drop, which, these people aren't just doing this in their basements anymore. They have production studios. They have a bunch of employees. These are like corporations at this point. They're now becoming part of the problem, and they need access, or at least they need content to drive the algorithm. And I think it's a very important point for those of you that don't know, and I think it's driving a lot of this, is you need at least, I believe the number is 4 videos a day at about 10 minutes each. And if you do that, then it feeds the algorithm as far as content, and you stay up in people's feeds. If you drop under that, like on vacation, you could be screwed, maybe for years you can make a dent in your access to people. Well, anyway, what do you talk about? If you keep talking about Epstein, which to me is really the main story, do not let go of. I commented Don Bongino, when he was a podcaster, said, do not let go of this story. The government will do everything to get you off its path, off its scent. Do not let go. He gets in office and he's like, oh, nothing to see here, right? I mean, it's incredible. So, so they spend a month with no new information coming out, except TMZ. I mean, TMZ, I have to be honest, that guy at TMZ has been doing a bang-up job. Like, he's like turning into 60 Minutes on this topic. I give him a lot of credit. He's taking on this story. And also, and I will send to Ernie later, a documentary, it's a channel called Moon, Moon, and they're doing great exposés on topics this audience would be interested in, one of which is about the Epstein. It just dropped. Matter of fact, it just dropped today. And I haven't finished watching it yet, but even I'm learning from this video. It's very well researched. And I'm pretty much on top of most of this story that's publicly aware. So anyway, it moves the ball a bit. But we're not going to have much information at all. I think any new information that has been unearthed over the last month, people are sitting on it. This is my other, again, comment from prior, because why release it now when no one's interested right now? Like, the Congress is out of session, people are on vacation. So I do think we're going to hear some new info. I don't mean it's going to be earth-shattering completely, but it'll be enough to feed the Epstein narrative machine come September. So I think we're going to get some info, and then the Thomas Massie bill will probably put back on the floor and then make them say it. But they have tried very hard to get people distracted, go on vacation, talk about other red meat issues, and Trump's been really good with the red meat. Ernie's even taken some of it, talking about Washington, D.C. and cleaning it up. And these are all the topics they want us talking about, not Epstein. So now that September is coming back and Congress is about to come back, all of a sudden, well, I guess the Russiagate really didn't grow wings. No one's asking for congressional hearings because, A, they know it's a distraction from Epstein, and number two, we all know nothing's going to happen. Ernie talked about accountability, and there is no accountability, and people finally, even normies, are throwing their hands up about it. Because if you can't get accountability on Epstein, and you have a president that runs on it, and then he gets amnesia, maybe it's part of his health problem, and that happens, well, then that's the problem. Nothing else matters to me. Nothing. And this is why I'm so frustrated. And then they're going to turn around and say, oh, well, what do you think about George Soros? We're going to RICO. We don't care about George Soros. The guy's half dead. And the guy did the damage he's going to do, and it's generational, and we have to mop it all up. So let's start with this profound problem where women are dying. I mean, you get that one Virginia Guthrie, or is that what's her name? I mean, she was one of the few that was brave enough to talk about this, and then she gets out of bus in the middle of the damn Australian desert outback or whatever. Just all of a sudden, she's dead. I mean, and I could keep going. I mean, there's so much packed into this, including the wars overseas. And I said earlier, I mean, how many of us are Ron Paul people? Anti-war. We're tired of the wars, and God knows. Donald Trump, I really believe, was anti-war, not for the same reasons, perhaps, as Ron Paul, but because he's a pragmatist. Like, why bother drop bombs? I'd rather make golf courses. You make more money. And yeah, that's a very Trumpian way to look at it. But I don't care how we get to it, not have war. I think Ron Paul would have it easy. And yes, I do Ron Paul. I'm not trying to put Ron Paul's integrity as equal to Donald Trump. So let me be clear about that one. But I do believe Ron Paul would stick to his guns completely, or no guns, as the case may be. But I don't know how long he'd be for that job. I'll just leave it there, because you see how dedicated this system is for the wars and how this whole system works. Now that we can talk about AIPAC, or I mean, not that we talk about wherever we want on this show, but the fact you've got mainstream hosts discussing AIPAC, I mean, and Israel's involvement, and you see this stark demographic generational shift from Israel. It's almost, I believe it's like people 45 and under are overwhelmingly now not supportive of Israel, or out and out hate Israel at this point, depending on their views of Palestine and all of this. And the only people left that are almost 80+% pro-Israel are the baby boomers, the people still watching CNN, or somewhat CNN, but mostly Fox News. That's all that's left. And Donald Trump thinks the whole world still watches Fox News. I mean, he gets up in the morning, he watches Fox and Friends in the morning, and then gets his interview, and he feels like he's still connecting with the people. But that's why he's disconnected. He never learned anything from the campaign that his son taught him about the new podcast infrastructure. Not to mention, that is the future. That is going to be who's voting. And I think Israel is realizing, in my opinion, that the handwriting's on the wall. They went all in of getting Gaza. They're taking it over as they claim they weren't, and now they are, right? They're going to create hate against them in this country. And in a few years, there's no more Fox News, and Israel's going to lose all the support politically in this country, probably in about a decade. And they probably know that at this point, and they probably can't put the genie back in the bottle. So I think, and this is why I think it's significant, when you know you got 10 years left to suck out of this country, the military and the money. I mean, our economy's broke. We're about to be handed the bag. We're the entire debt note, and they've been able to expand out for as much as they want. And now that they got that, you know, it's like, what happens next? Well, it's like, all right, well, we got to, and this is what it feels like. It feels like they used us up. And now that we're turning into a shell of ourselves with our liberties lost because we gave half of them away at 9/11, you know, from the Unpatriot Act, because people had a fear because we get bombed. Why did we get bombed? Oh, they hate our freedom? Really? Anyway, this audience already gets all that situation, but it's all packed into this. So now what? So we're a shell of ourselves, bankrupt and everything else. And then, they lose the population here or the support, they probably are going to go for broke. And that's my concern. They have 10 years left of neocons still controlling things, so they won't leave the office, and whatever's left of our money. And who knows, like if you were them and you want to make sure that you got 10 years left to secure your borders and get yourself as beefed up as possible to maybe, outlast another 50 years of maybe a downturn in support, what do you do? And I just feel frustrated that we have a president that's doing whatever he can to help this situation for Israel, apparently, to the fact that he has turned me against the entire movement over this issue. And yes, you might on both the Israel deal, but the Epstein deal, because it keeps coming back to Epstein. And if Epstein is linked to Israel, which it looks like it is, it makes complete sense why this is all being deep-sixed of all times now. And it shows you the control of a foreign country over this nation. And there's nothing more paramount than that. What's the point of talking about anything when our decisions don't matter? And yes, Ernie's thinking, oh, you just figured that out, Phranq? I mean, no, I get it. But where is it coming from? And it's bad. I thought it was bad enough having homegrown Americans frustrated, turning on their own people. But it almost makes more sense when it's foreigners. And this thing from Moon does a good job explaining some of the early versions of AIPAC, like the initial, I think they were called the Mega Club and the Mega Star. It had Mega, it was like the progenitor to what became AIPAC. It's a great video. I recommend you guys check it out. Anyway, I'll wind this somewhat rant down, but it's just been packed up for years leading up to this last administration since he got in, and crestfallen doesn't quite even give it enough justice, to then the kicking in the groin in from that he's still interested in Epstein deal comment, and then the disillusion of all of this, of what he's doing and the future of MAGA and everything over that moment. And then a month for this to brew, was waiting for Congress to come back. And then we got these distractions, which seems like people are falling for it a bit, including maybe even on this show. And so we're going with these distractions. And then at the same time, it's being propagated by podcasters who have to feed the algorithm. I'm just summarizing here. I'm not restating everything, but it's to summarize is that the podcasters have to keep coming up with content, and if there's nothing else to talk about with Epstein because they've closed all the there's no more information out and they won't talk about it. Well, then what do you talk about when you need 4 videos a day? So you have to take the bait and move on to something else.
No, you don't.
I'm just saying, and we'll go into other topics today as well. We will go into other topics. I outlined some earlier, and Ernie had his whole long intro already. But I'm not going to let go of it. I told the audience I'm not going to be going on a long, 2-3 hour rants like I did the last couple of times every show.
He's
but
turning
to
into
not
Bongino.
bring it up and not count how many days it's been since that promise. Then if nothing else, right now, Ernie, it's going to crash again. That'll be the proof. And right around this time, audience, is when, I handed it to Ernie and then it crashed. And Ernie says, you know what? Everything you just said, I'll summarize in one sentence. Don't worry about it. And, I know what Ernie was trying to do, but, to him, he's not interested in it. But I know it's not just interest to me,
that's not
but a
true.
large part of this audience. And again, and the last point is
because we got a delay.
Point is that I think that if it's turning me, just use me, if nothing else, to just use me as a bellwether of other slow to the party people, if you want to look at me in that regard, of what is turning people, not just from Trump, but the system in general. Not that they were all obtuse about this, but I'm one of those people that knows it's broken, but I will let it have the wheels fall off, but I want to expose it as much as possible and give it every opportunity to redeem itself until it literally can't, and it's exposed to the majority of people, not just the diehard political types like we and the libertarians, even before the internet, the John Burke Society, and we're unique people. We're really into this. But the average person, we can call them dim-witted or slow or lazy for not getting that involved. But they are important because, a society needs, you need well, if nothing else, general public opinion. I'll speak in Ernie's terms so he doesn't argue about the concept. So general public opinion changes when enough people, when it becomes common knowledge. Before it's a conspiracy theory, and then all of a sudden CNN's talking about Epstein. So anyway, I got that out of the way. Round two, I thank you for the audience that heard the first round of all of this. I tried to make it a little different. But that's very important to me. I will bring it up each time, but not long rants. But let's just watch to see. I want to see when September comes around how Congress starts to play this. They had a whole month to hear from their constituents when they're not in Israel, and we'll see. We will see. I'm very fascinated to see what happens. And look, maybe at the end of the day, Ernie, the biggest distraction of all of them is when everyone's pensions drop out and there's no food, which is the very thing you've been counting on anyway. So and that's right around the corner, as most of us know. That will be the true distraction, and we will see.
All right, this is what's going on. I'm glad Phranq, got it off his chest a second time, so he feels better. But this has been what I've been screaming about for years, since Trump came in, since we started doing Trump. This is 10 years. This week's 10 years, or last week was 10 years. 10 freaking years, Trump Report. Hundreds of shows. Thousands of hours. I mean, oh my God. So this is the point that I was hoping to summarize. During Trump's first administration, it was the promise of the JFK. I mean, it's just, pick a thing. I'm going to this, I'm going to, whatever. You're going to release the JFK files. Because what do we know? The deep state, if it didn't already exist, which I'm sure it did, it got amped up, with what they got away with, taking out a United States sitting president. Man, don't think you don't get all kinds of confidence we can do what we want. And then they go into Reagan, the CIA director was Woolsey or whatever, goes, when Americans, everything that they know is a lie, we know we want. Yeah, we win. We did it. We're good. This was the stenographer that was taking down notes or that wrote this down and told and that's how it came out and wasn't denied. And, this is their mindset. So there was, what was it called? It was Robert De Niro and I think, it was Good Will Hunting guy. What's his name? Born Identity, whatever. That actor that was in this movie about the creation of the CIA, A Good Shepherd, I think it was. And I'm just, wow, there's so long of a tail to what's going on now. And I always felt I was born at just the right time. I was born in 61. I was I'm old enough to remember the space race. I'm old enough to remember, the Red Scare. The Russians are coming. I'm old enough to remember Watergate, Iran-Contra, OPEC embargo of the oil. I remember. And it just goes, different financial crashes, Ruby Ridge, Waco, Oklahoma City, 9/11, the market crash in '08. That started way before that. And what happens is Oklahoma City is just now starting to get some eyeballs. They're starting to get some revelation. They're starting to get what the truth was. They're starting to get. Why? Because if they had nipped the corruption from the FBI and the BATF and law enforcement back then, the drug war and whatever the hell, we got all this control, and it started during the Bush administration. Clinton's inherited it. Woohoo! Here comes Janet Reno, and what can we get out of this and that? I remember her saying that we got to go after these cults. And how they were describing it, these people actually believe in Jesus Christ. This mythical figurehead that resurrected from and kind of, got to go get them. You're not allowed to believe certain things. And you're going to be targeted. They're always, it's a cycle. It's a revolution. It turns. They go after those of faith. They always have. Because you're not allowed to answer to a higher moral authority. We passed a law. We voted your rights away. We can do, and it's a privilege and not a right, and what's this right thing anyway? And you know what rights are? What you can defend. I can guarantee that. You don't have them, you don't defend them. So I was so encouraged during my activist years, the decades we've been doing this. You mess with people's gun rights in America, there's a big long line of you're not allowed to do that. And they're almost kind of, government's kind of giving up on it. You can have your guns, damn it. We got the Supreme Court supporting your rights. Damn it. Because what they really want is control. They're doing that with surveillance. They're doing that with your money, what you can and can't spend it on, what we have. This is the one thing that over the last couple of weeks, it was just this last weekend. So I'm sure we'll talk about it here in a little bit. But Sunday, Phranq and I went to the movies because it was another Japanese foreign film Godzilla thing of whatever. And it was interesting, and we'll talk about it. But that weekend, we were able to go do that because we were way out in the desert. We were spending the weekend with one of my sons and his family because there's like 3 birthdays within, a week or two. So we're going and hanging with the family and so on. And my son's one of those, we don't talk about work and Dad, you talk too much. Just trying to get him to talk to me. But the one thing he did say just really.
Hey, Ernie, I'm just curious. Are you banned from talking politics with your family? Do they put a limit?
No, not really. I mean, a lot of times they'll come to me first or so on. It's just, my one son, and he is. He's really smart. He's just so way ahead and above, and he's on the 4chan, kind of, the real kind of behind, how are you a toxin? You don't know this about that. I have experts come on and I,
Right.
have my opinion, and this is, what skipped to the end and, change my mind and what, so I learn more by asking questions, which I do. You're not allowed to ask. Stop encouraging them. Don't, one of the brothers, we have a family chat and they asked me a question. No, don't ever ask him a question, So what happened was I was talking to my daughter-in-law, and he comes in, about some of this stuff. And I was really wanting to get his opinion because he's, a smart guy. He's in, economics and crypto, and, he's a smart kid. And, he's not a kid anymore. He's like, 36 or something, so he's not a kid. But I go, they're doing this Genius Act thing, making it so that you can invest your retirement 401ks, IRA pensions, whatever, into crypto. And I go, that's just to save the dollar. They just want to, to kind of tie everything to the dollar. And he goes, are you stupid? Well, he just puts it a different way. But this was really prepared me for when I talked to Tiffany, some other, Doug Casey and Patrick Barney, these people that know. I had this phraseology. He goes, they're just using crypto as a big giant liquidity sponge. It's to suck up all the extra dollars that are coming home. The inflation of all the dollars that they're printing. If they didn't have crypto and Bitcoin to put all this money into, where would it go? Gold and silver. They don't want it to go gold and silver. They manipulate gold and silver all the hell. It's at record highs now, but it would be a gazillion times more, which all of us, free market, libertarian types going, this is stupid. Silver should be at least hundreds of dollars. Gold, I don't know, 10, 15,000. What the hell is going on? It's being manipulated, and they have to suck up all of those inflationary dollars that they created that's getting into the system, and BRICS doing their thing, and it's going to euro. They have, the Chinese are liquidating their treasury bills. And where's all those dollars going? Crypto, Bitcoin, others. And they want what they want, which is surveillance. They don't want people to put their wealth into gold and silver. In the 90s, when we first started, becoming real, the Federal Reserve wasn't Federal or Reserve kind of thing. There was a lot of guys that, with, Bob Anderson was one of them, Lonnie and Michael. There's a bunch of young guys. They got out of the Navy. They go in to nuclear power plant. They're making bank. They were funding a lot of the stuff that we were doing. I need a couple $1,000 for a prize seed of the whatever, or buy a printing press, or kind of, yeah, I got that. We'll do that. Because they were just loaded down with cash and bought their new trucks and so on and making bank, out power plant. And they were funding a lot of the stuff that we were doing. And then they start to understand that their pensions are not going to, be there. They kept a lot of the pension stuff, but the 401ks and everything, put it in the government's hands of these different funds that are spending your 401 on this stock index kind of, whatever crap's going on, and it's gone. So they were going, nah, I'm not. Well, you take a tax hit. You take a penalty. You'll lose, 10, 20% or something if you take it out. That's how they keep you incentivized to leave it in the 401k, these pools of money that they, them, those, and it's gone. So it was amazing to me how many of them.
And actually to incentivize to keep it in the dollar. It's
right.
Really to keep it in the dollar.
And this is where Peter Schiff came in when he spoke at one of our Freedom Summits, and he's going, no, they get out of the dollar. Get out of the dollar. Go into the. So a lot of these things we've been, getting good perspective on, the basic fundamentals of economics, which definitely came out of the Ron Paul campaign in 2008. For the first time, the Federal Reserve became a presidential discussed, well understood, pay attention, this is how it really works issue. And the Fed. And they were going, audit the Fed, audit the Fed. It was the audience. It was the Lovolutionary screaming out there, audit. I wouldn't believe a damn thing they said. End it. Ignore it. I don't care. Why? You go to precious metals. That's why we did the silver dime card thing. We were pushing all kinds of, precious metals. So then here comes crypto. We're going, yeah, kind of people's money, but I know what's going to happen. And I was very keen on asking the right questions. It became obvious by 2013 that they were going to turn it in the GoldmanSucks.gov coin. They needed it to be able to surveil, to control, and to say any competing currency is counterfeit. All these others now they're shit coins. They're the campaign, here it comes. And then you get Saylor and these guys come in buying it all up, and big institutions and everything. And then what happens? All of a sudden, here we have BlackRock selling a boatload of Bitcoin just in the last few days. They're just like, oh, no, we're dumping. Ooh, we're going to dump now. Here it comes. So I'm going, this is just, and how did you know? Well, if you're paying attention to the right stuff, how'd you not know? So this is what I see is going on. The crypto resurgence under Peter Thiel and Musk and J.D. Vance and they, them, those and everything, it's going, ooh, we're going to get rich because we're going to make it to where it's a store of value and yada, yada, yada. Well, it goes up to $124,000 of Bitcoin. Now it's back down to whatever the hell it is, lose another 20,000 or something. Doesn't matter. Don't care. Because they, them, those, because they can. They will pump it up. They'll dump it. Pump it up. Dump it. Pump it up. Dump it. I remember talking to a very wealthy guy one time, a good friend of another wealthy guy, and I go, why are you keeping in the dollar and use kind of what? And he goes, volatility. It goes up, it goes down. I go, it's going to zero. And he goes, yeah, it's going to zero, but it never makes it to zero. And in the process, you can make a boatload of money. I'm like, all right, that's because that's their goal. They measure their success by how many dollars they have. Now, some people take that and put it into how much freedom they can get. And they measure it by how many minds they can free. And it's like, what issue? Is it the vaccine? Is it RFK Jr. support? Is it Ron Paul support? Is it Federal Reserve? Is it reform on the stock market? How they, the great taking and the universal commercial code state by state. David Webb was going on about, Tiffany was going on about, we got to limit all the houses that corporations can buy. To what limit? I go, my son-in-law's got an LLC and they, buy different, they're limited, to 10. So you're just getting into all this minutia of how you're, we're going to have good laws, but we're going to have laws. We're going to have good social and economic engineering, but we're going to have social and economic engineering. So I'm going, no, that's the problem. Quit delegating away your authority to someone. The problem is not that, they got bad laws on how, finances are regulated and who can buy and not, and, insider trading or Congress and all this. It's the fact that you got laws, that control individual behavior. And it all comes down to what I always, because I was at it from economics. In the late 80s, my father's company, that was what drew me. I'm like, how do they get away with all this crap? It was election law. It was, we rule you this way, and we pretend to give you the illusion of choice. You may choose from communist candidate A or fascist candidate B, and we don't care which one because we're in trouble. I care not who makes the laws, it's who controls the money. So this is why when we get in the Epstein thing, Phranq turns into Ernie, on the Epstein thing, just like I was out of principle, Trump signed the freaking paper and give me JFK. I want to know everything. Why? It's the same thing. Same list, same mechanism, same people, same protection, same concept, same control, same. And if you're not doing it the way they want, they got a bullet for you. And is Trump, I was saved by God to be here and do what? To be influenced by, they're going to kill me, and I better, do this right, or I'm going to be dead. I don't want to be dead. To think that didn't have some influence on him. So what is he allowed to do? How far is he allowed to go? Who is he allowed to sacrifice? What rights of mine got negotiated away in order for him to be perceived as doing something? Well, Pizzagate. Russiagate, whatever gate. But the gate we ain't opening is the one to Israel. Now, is Israel it? Probably not. They're just, they're insulation. You have the wire under the insulation where the real money, the real influence, the real control is being done. Well, who's the insulation? I don't know, Epstein, Bill, Hillary Clinton, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Poindexter. I mean, on and on and on. The bad guys of bad men. That's easy. They said, well, they're bad. Freedom good, government bad, 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 bad. And these guys are the government. They're bad. So who do they give up? The insulation. They're not going to uncover the wire. They'll have layers and layers and layers and layers of insulation. They're going to do what they're going to do. because they can. Until they can't. So when I go to the audience, like Tiffany was going on about, we got to fix and fix and fix and fix, and I'm like, you're not going to fix it. There's no fixing it. There's avoiding it. Get your money out. And do what with it? I don't know. Buy land. Educate your kids. Educate yourself. You occupy the freaking land. That's one thing. Grow food. Invest in a greenhouse. Invest in, you get calories, you don't die. How about that? Invest in a rain catching system. Invest in. Things that are going to matter to keep you breathing in and out. You don't do that, you're just roadkill. And they go, thanks for playing, it's ours now. That is what Occupy the Land is about.
Yeah.
Go.
And so much of it is having, teaching the future. Ernie, and I'm not going to get much detail because it's family oriented, but, Ernie's grandkids, children and grandkids, are some of the luckiest people that I personally know. And I'm probably sensitive to this because, my parents divorced when I was 5. I never had my father around. I never learned how to use a screwdriver. I mean, I figured out later. I'm pretty handy for a doctor. I've got nice calloused hands, and all my doctor friends can't understand how I know how to, put up solar panels and fix things around the house. Like they all think it's pretty amazing that I can do that. I get accolades from doctor friends, and I'm thinking, how do you not know how to do these things? But I do recognize some of my friends who had fathers who had workshops. They grew up on farms, and I'm truly envious and saddened by what I never learned. So that comes down to, of course, having full families, and why many children of divorced families go out of their way to stay together no matter what, because you see the loss. Anyway, but Ernie's grandkids and family, I'm just going to say, and Bob Anderson, same thing. I'm calling him out because he's public knowledge on this show. But I hope that they take advantage of these people, of Bernie and Bob, and that's another story how, kids today are doing their own thing. But I just want to point out that is such a resource. It's better than any college worthless degree, is to have a family member who's like, who's like taking a piece of desert and making it livable with, self-made domes and all the rest of this. It's incredible, and people should take advantage. Now, let's look on the other side. You have, of course, the great culling, and the culling is of course, getting rid of, the detritus of, I don't want to say society, but let's just say people who are not adds to their community. I'm not taking away any general basic human rights. I'm not calling for, the concentration camps, nothing like that. For some of you diehards, lefties are trying to always look for a problem that I'm not saying. But it is people who are just sitting back playing video games and haven't learned how to figure things out on their own. It's going to be a big wake-up call. And there was a video I sent my group. Ernie and Donna were on there, and the title was about Disneyland adults. How all these that
was interesting.
That Disneyland figured out about 20 years ago that. Oh, did you watch the whole thing?
Yeah.
I'm glad you did, because I wanted to make sure you guys didn't think it was just about Disneyland. It wasn't. That was just that was the tagline in the beginning. That Disney found out that at Disney World, at their theme parks, it was like, I forget the exact, it was like 35%, only 35% of their attendees are families with kids. It was like 70% or 65, 70% were adults, childless adults, showing up, trying to relive their childhood, putting on Mickey Mouse ears and hugging Goofy as if he was like a long-lost relative, and crying. And that's why they're starting to have alcohol now. You can go there at night just for adults only, and drink, and then get on Space Mountain.
Semi-adults.
They're having there's also a fast thing for nostalgia. I'm sure you love the part when Disney has learned that the atmosphere, to use odor, to use fragrance, and they have a vanilla bakery type smell that they pump in Main Street. So when you're walking down Main Street, there is not a bakery there, but it's fake smells to make you feel warm and nostalgic. So anyway, there's a lot involved, but the video goes on to many other things about one of Ernie's favorite movies of all time, which is Idiocracy, which is becoming more and more prescient every day, and how we're turning into that. And one of the things and the reason I'm bringing all this up was one of the comments was about this new phenomena called adulting, which I'm sure Ernie, or I would love to see you in one of those classes or teach one. But adulting is it's funny. It's always seemed to be popping up in blue cities, Seattle, Portland. I wonder why. But what it is adults with college degrees who don't know how to do anything. They literally, you go to an adulting class and they teach you, what do they say? How to cook an egg. How to knit a button, how to sew, how to like just forget about tilling the field and cooking and planting crops and doing solar panels. But I mean, just fry an egg. It's incredible how little and unprepared these people are. So yeah, like you said, going to be roadkill. And when you have people having to take adulting classes, it gives you a sense of how more ahead of the curve most of this audience, I'm sure all of this audience, is at this point. But it's good for us, but it gives you a sense of how people are going to suffer, but also ways and opportunities to make. The question I have, and I'll throw it to you, is this something reversible or not? I was just talking to my wife when I was dropping her off today, and I said, normally societies go through ebbs and flows, and you have freedom, you fight for freedom, there's a revolution, and then over years people forget, as distance from the fighting generation goes, you get complacent, then you start debasing the money, you create an empire, the thing collapses, you've got pedophilia rings on islands and all the rest, and then it all collapses, and then you reset. That's usually what happens, and you get the new alpha generation that is strong and has learned, it often is angry, which this generation has a lot of rights to be angry about, the baby boomers bitching that they're not getting all their social security. You hear baby boomers complaining how rough things are, but yet they were given basically a surplus of our economy, and now they're giving their grandkids as they're checking out after enjoying and exploiting all the good times of this country for their entire life. The great generation fought the Nazis, the Depression, polio, and gave their kids essentially, I mean, it wasn't like there weren't problems. I mean, it started off with the JFK assassination, a lot of other, and Vietnam. So let's just be fair. But the baby boomers had the greatest, we were the greatest lender nation in the world. And now, after sucking it all up for all sorts of reasons, now we're giving the leftover husk again to their grandkids with a huge bill. And then they're saying that the young people are just complainers and they don't work that hard and they're selling video games in their basement, which, I can slight them as well. But man, oh man, this generational war is heating up because the young people are going, who the hell are you baby boomers think you are? You literally sucked everything out of this country, giving us the bill and telling us that we have no reason to complain about it. So anyway, so you have that whole thing. But my question to you is that, do you think that we're able to rebound as human beings, that after people like this new generation should be so angry, being bankrupted and everything, that they come back, with a lot of vigor, piss and vigor, and we have revolution or not, but we have a reset, however you want to look at that. And then we've got men become men again, and women are women and mothers, and we have a reset as far as culture, character, ethics, and we go forward, and no more adulting classes. Or are we at a point now where it truly is different because of AI and the fact that we've got all the money people buying off representatives and people like out of Jurassic Park trying to see if we could, not whether we should, and before any studies have been finished on what even social media does to us, we're already rushing right into the brick wall or off the cliff of AI to take everyone's jobs and on and on. And so now these young people don't have an opportunity to get a job, and nobody's even talking about what will happen. It's just, how many more data centers do we have? How can we send the bill to the electric company for them to pass it on to the consumer, which is why all of our electric bills are up. We talked about last week. So you've got all of this, and you've got literally the brains changing of young people where they're not critically thinking. They can't fry an egg. I mean, you know, all of this. My question is, are the young people, do you think, different because they're changing us? You've always said they have to change us. And for the first time, I see them changing us, not through, I mean, maybe it's hormones in the water. We could talk about other possible theories, but we know they're changing us, or we are changing ourselves through the quick adaptation of technology and giving an iPad to your 2-year-old and all the rest of that. And so when you get rid of critical thinking and analysis, and someone cannot drive a car without a GPS on there, and they can't write a book report without AI, and they can't do anything, well, then you have changed people not to fight back. And I don't know if there's a coming back from that. If once you lose that, now I guess human beings inherently want freedom and will fight if they're taken out of that construct. So maybe the fight will be that you're not allowed to occupy the land. You're not allowed to be Amish and not have electronic devices, because then you're going to start to become much more different than the people around. It's not just about using radios anymore. Their brains will be critically thinking and a true threat to the system. I think that day's coming, but it's going to be probably outside of our lifetime. But do you think it's too far gone? Do you think inherent human nature will be able to fight back, or do you think we're changing too much at this point that we won't be able to fight our way through?
Well, first you got to define we.
Our children's generation, say children, or your grandkids.
Well, it depends on
after the reset.
Depends on grandma, grandpa, and the parents. You know, this is when you talk about our. I give you an example. Let's see. I think of all our kids, I think they all went and took college. One got a degree, and one of my two of my son-in-laws have a degree, and but none of them kind of use it other than to put on a resume and they get a higher management job of whatever. This is what I realized in working in the restaurant industry, general manager, different restaurant chains and so on in my early days in the 80s and early 90s. I would be trained. I don't have a degree. I went to Arizona State University for aerospace engineering. I took college classes when I was in Texas, just for myself. I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. Man, I was in it, but then the bloom fell off when it was. You think this woke thing just started? When I started college, I graduated high school '79. I started going to college. I sat out a year, 80, 81, and it was affirmative action. So I didn't get any financial help or whatever to do anything. I had to work. So then, so I joined a frat because it was cheaper and you got your entertainment and it was a better economic deal. Plus they supported engineers and they had the test and the file cabinet that kind of thing. So then you go through that process, and I was interested in philosophy. So philosophy 101 and thou shalt be woke. I mean, this started back to English 101, Ebonics, how to be speaking like you be from Harlem. I mean, I'm like, what? This college. I got better education from high school and just reading books than, science magazines. I read a lot. So I'm done. I'm done. Went into business, came general manager, whatever. At a very young age. I was a young general manager. So then I opened my own restaurant, later, and, hilarity ensued. But when I would be given somebody to train, they would go to all these college job fairs and so on. Anybody that stopped at their table for, the corporations that had these different restaurants and so on, and I worked for several, and what they do is they would just hire any and everybody with a degree. Yep, we're going to give you get benefits and health care and this and, semi-almost decent salary, and we put you in, and why? Because I'm training, I go, these are dumber than a bag of rocks. I'm like, what the hell? I got employees. I got shift managers. I got hourly, just above minimum wage that they already know more than these people, better character, more diligent, honest, aggressive, self-starting people, and I got to train this freaking lump on a log? You got to explain this to me. And I was diligent about it for, and it was like a month or two. I was just being a butthead. They were just because we had really good numbers, and I, was a good manager. So they, I'd be a training guy. When they send me these wave of college graduates, I'm like, what the hell? It was Wall Street. When you were when IPO, initial public offering, you go on, they look at your was it prospectus and the conditions of it's like this ESG DEI thing. Well, how compliant are they with the standards of whatever some guy in a meeting put on a piece of paper is a good thing for pensions to invest in? And one of those criteria was at an operation management level. When you would say a salaried management individual, what percentage had a college degree? Had nothing to do with meritocracy, had nothing to do with quality, had nothing to do with nothing other than they had a college degree. And I go, that's your criteria? When they have to learn Ebonics? Are you freaking kidding me? This was in the 80s. You want to see a future, you look at what's rewarded and what is punished. I could see what was coming. And it only got worse and worse and worse. Then my kids, it's in the 90s. We pulled them out of government school. We homeschooled. We tried Montessori. We did charter. All that kind. Finally, they wound up at a private school, Christian school. Did good job. I'm satisfied with how that went. So then I'm going, they had these magazines and books, the Scholastic, whatever the hell, that everybody had the kind of a teaching thing. I don't know what the hell. And I remember one thing that really I started paying attention to go, what gobbledygook is this? Who's behind this? Who does the printing of the textbooks? Who's setting the standards? Who's at the the teachers union of the education department of kind of testing? What crap is going on? They had in there the internet. Oh, this is the internet, how the internet works, and the internet can be cool about internet. This is just getting going before we hit broadband. This is the late 90s. They're going, the internet. Now, you go in there and you can look up bears. Oh, yeah, bears are, kind of, how to use the internet. But don't. Of course, this is telling junior high kids that don't do something. You know how that works. But don't look up golden bears. You look up golden bears, you kind of go off into, you shouldn't go there. I'm like, what the shit are they talking about? I go in golden bear. It was a gay thing. It was older men that were trolling young boys. It was a pedophile thing. They're telling them not to do. What the hell did you think was going to happen? They're just creating a I'm going, you guys are you kidding me? This has been going on for a long time. And it really targets control, whatever the hell it is that they want to normalize, how they want to break the family, how they want to divide us into, different, get an entire generation of you can't read Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer. You're banned in 1984. It's not required reading to read Fahrenheit 451, which is about censorship in books. You got Brave New World that you're just, taking soma and you're chemically castrating your brain and you're just, whatever, where's my video game? You're not, what the crap? It was intentional, it was on purpose, and it's been going on since I was pre-adult. Do you think this is new? This has been going on forever. The only thing that has saved us has been people using the internet to communicate this stuff with others. Then what do? That video is not available anymore. Century of the Self was a BBC, BBC has, public and kind of private, still controlled like our FCC stuff. But there was, some of them, had independent programming. And one of them was a 4-part series called Century of the Self. Kanye West, during Trump's first administration, they were going on, getting on Kanye because he was supporting Trump. And he goes, man, you guys have no idea what's really going on. You want to know what's going on? Black young men Go watch Century of the Self, and you'll know what's going on. I go, woo! I've been supporting that since forever. Because what do? I put it up on Freedom's Phoenix. Here's the link to the videos. Here's the link. And then taken down, gone. Put up the next link, taken down, gone. Another platform, taken down, gone. I kept doing it. Kanye did that, boom. It's done now. It's out too prevalent in the society that you won't know what it is. And what it is where public relations came from Edward Bernays. Bernays was Freud's nephew or whatever, and he used how to control the masses. This was like, 20s, 30s or something they've been doing this. So it's propaganda, the art of propaganda, the art of general public opinion that you're being ruled and, you'll own nothing and be happy. Here's your happy shot, make sure. So this is, you got the fluoride in the water. RFK Jr. is just coming out. They're starting to stop that. He goes, we'll know what causes autism by September. Well, it's September. Be a coming. What do? They go into Trump's Oval Office and say, we know. Now we know. It's this. They've been doing this, lowering our IQ on this, doing it. Why? Because it serves they, them, those. Will it change? Absolutely. Out of survival instincts. And it's already happening. You know it's going to happen. COVID just warp speeded it, told people like, damn. So what did they do? You're the bad guy. You're killing grandma. You're not trusting, Dr. Fauci, the science. The science is Fauci. You're not trusting it. Then that's going to come out. And it's going to come out. It's going to come out. It's going to come out. Just like everybody knows, JFK thing was BS, what they said, the Warren Commission. 9/11 was BS. Oklahoma City was BS. This is BS. It was all BS. At some point, you just, how'd you know they were lying? How'd you know the politicians were lying? Their lips were moving. This is a default thing now, which is good. But you need to go find the truth. Who do you trust? The future is about credibility. Who, what do you believe? This is where the influence of Ron Paul came in. It was a philosophy. First, do no harm, don't take people's shit. Boom. Golden rule, non-aggression principle, proper role of government, defense of individual, all just basic fundamental stuff that you can touchstone on to realize what's going on. So when we go to, here, I'll show you this. When we go to this book, The Preparation, I'll just read you the synopsis of it. This is Doug Casey and Matt Smith did it with the beta tester, Maxim Smith, Matt's son, that's now 20. Past couple of years, he's been working on this. He has his own what I did this week. He's got thousands of followers. Now he's going through the book. He's only done a couple out of the 16 things and a bunch of stuff. He went and got his EMT certification. He went and fought fires. He sailed around, the southern tip of South America. He's going through the Magellan Straits. He's been a gaucho. He was playing cowboy in Uruguay. He's learning real man stuff. The preparation, how to become competent, confident, and dangerous. Skip the debt, build the man. What if you could trade 4 stagnant years in lecture halls for 4 years of adventure, emerging as a debt-free EMT, pilot, welder, web app builder, rancher, and entrepreneur all in one? The preparation is the field manual for young men and the parents who love them, who know the old college formula is broken and want a roadmap that actually forges competence, confidence, and the real world value. Real world values. So this is, and you go, I'm a virtuous man. We got to look up, be virtuous. What the hell does virtuous mean? It's just emphasizing the good, the positive in people. Courage, endurance, dependability, reliability, kindness, compassion, love, empathy. All of these things, where do you get that in school? You don't. They beat it the F out of you. Why? Because it serves they, them, those. You want to learn all this crap? Build a freaking house. You get carpentry, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, concrete, being outside, get a healthy tan. Are you kidding me? Why do you do all this? Why do you go to college? Why do you go to work? So you can have a comfortable life. You can create a life for a pretty little birdie that wants to live with you and have babies. And then you go to the women. Nah, you don't want to be. Don't select a real man. Get a beta male. They'll do what you say, and you don't want any mansplaining. You need to bullshit. It's tried and true biblical stuff.
That's not working out so well.
So what your question is? What do I think is going to happen?
I don't need a real man, and the woman themselves.
What I think is going to happen is that out of existential threat.
Wait, we didn't get to the answer yet? We didn't get to the answer?
It's going to be that out of survival, we are going to see it's going to be a food thing. How do you keep this body going? The purpose of life is to keep life going, to keep on keeping on. That is the point. And if your mortality and how many years you can live, what do? Offspring. You create life. You support that life. You train that life to be able to keep living. What are we doing now? I have no idea what the shit is going on. It's not good. So this is what I see and why we raised our children the way. My youngest daughter, Sierra, is now, 35 or whatever, has 2 children. She refused to put on a mask or get the vaccine. She worked at Honeywell Aerospace. This is a federal contractor of Air Force kind of military industrial whatever. And she's not well, if you don't work on it, she goes, no, you know what? When my badge doesn't work anymore and I can't work, dude, yeah, that's when I'll know. When you guys do that, let me know. Peace out. Not doing it. Well, eventually they laid off, fired. It's still amorphous kind of whatever. She's the rock star and some lawsuit other people filed. She don't care. But was I worried about? No. She was a self-start 6th grade. She was homeschooled and worked in the restaurant. Went every Thursday to go work at a veterinary hospital because every 12-year-old wants to be a veterinarian. And we went through all that. She knew everything, how to order inventory. She took care of all the employee files. She hired, fired, ran shifts. All my employees respected the 12-year-old because she knew what the F she was doing. Our kids have been, and the reason I did that is because in 7th grade, all the other kids had been transitioned into private school, Phoenix Christian Junior Senior High, and I knew she was a little social butterfly and wasn't going to be doing anything at the charter school that we had them. I'm going, no, hell no. And when they had the magazines that don't go to the Golden Bear search, and no, you're going to come here morning. She had a libertarian friend of mine would teach her, and he drove for me. And he would go in, they'd do a couple of hours of work. He'd bring her there. She'd work till about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and she went off to do whatever she wanted to do. Boom. A year of that. Do I worry about her being productive? Hell no, she's a real estate agent now, kicking butt. And I'm going, this is her husband and one of my sons. They were at Honeywell Aerospace also. Left that, go to Nikola. They're at Nikola. It gets bankrupt, gets bought up by Lucid. Do I worry about it? Hell no. They definitely hire them on. And why? Because they're freaking great people. They're productive. I told them, I said, when we work at the restaurant, I'm going, you know what? You're going to get in the real world, and they're going to say, you got to work 50 hours a week, and every other Saturday you got to come in, good, and they go, woo, a vacation. Holy crap, that's all? Hell, I grew up in a family restaurant. Man, I dream of only have to work 50 hours. So I just look, this is how you raise parents for your grandchildren. I did not want to be a parent to my grandkids. I did not want to have to. I wanted to influence them. I wanted to, whatever I learned, being a bad father and did it wrong and whatever, and do it right. Definitely going to emphasize what's important to my grandkids, and we had a great time when they were young. It was awesome. But I raised parents so that I didn't have to be a parent to my grandkids. That's why our family does as well as it is. As poor as we were. So I'm telling you, we put everything into the activism. Whatever money we had, it was into the future. Now, they're starting to understand more now, the motivation, but they didn't understand that. We're poor, and we make and you spend all on, and you're doing, kind of man, you're doing it wrong. And I'm going, you guys have no idea what's coming. You don't see what's happening. You don't see what I see. Now we are. It's going to be a food thing.
All right. So yeah, I would say I would be surprised if one of your kids or grandkids don't take the ball and run it further. I'm always saying that because Rand Paul thought his dad, what was his name? Ron, that his dad was a little kooky and strange and didn't quite get what it was his dad was doing.
You're doing it wrong.
Peter Schiff, he was taking welfare checks sitting on the beach in Florida. In Florida, he was taking welfare checks, and he's like, my crazy dad Irwin. I don't know what he's doing. He's always fighting the feds, and I don't. And eventually, the light bulb went on, and they each realized, how special their father was, but just couldn't see it at the time. When that's all clearly. So I'd be hopefully someone in your family will run the ball, and we don't have to get further into it, but hopefully that would be a good thing.
They're doing
also,
good enough.
as far as freedom and money, you made that comment. Oh yeah, they're great. But as far as money and freedom, I mean, they're not always hand in hand. I mean, money can buy you freedom, but many times it cannot. A perfect example is what I do, as a physician. And it's a tough thing. I'm a naturopathic physician, although I work more integrative and prostate cancer. Most of you probably know that. But I just, I made that decision early on. I mean, I certainly leave a lot of money on the table by not going into the conventional system. I mean, I know what my surgeon friends make, and they make nice money. They're, making easily close to, a third of a million a year, $500,000. It kind of depends what specialty and where they're at. However, and of course I don't have that anywhere close to that. And it is a little frustrating. I'm not going to be an advertisement on your show, but I get urologists as patients. I get their patients. I have, when they can't handle the case and someone really needs a deep dive in their situation before they go under the knife in a 10-minute urology visit, they come in and we'll spend a few hours and deep dive and figure everything out to their satisfaction so they make the right decision for them. I don't even advertise. It's all referrals. You get the idea. But you would think that someone at that expertise who's outperforming the urologist assessments would be making even more. But it's the opposite. Why? Because I'm not part of the system. And that was by design. I purposely gave it up to be a cash doctor, which has its limitations. You're not taking insurance, which means you don't just have patients thrown at you, which means you have to market yourself, and it means you need a superior product in order for people to wallet vote to come see you as a doctor rather than a $10 copay. So there's a lot that you really have to find a product or a service, to put it in that term, that you can sell. But you're not going to get all that money, that the urologists do, insurance, overbilling, and all the BS that they do. I don't want to get into that expose. However, I have freedom. And if I want to, I can set my own hours. I can work whatever days I want. When you're a surgeon, you can't. I mean, you're locked in. You're basically owned by the hospital. The hospital, you contract through your maybe a urology group, your medical group, because notice doctors don't work on their own anymore. They're all part of groups that are incorporated with usually outside companies that are not even owned by doctors, who they're just snapping up doctors and making franchises, whether you know them or not, for each state. They'll get the top rung cardiologist all to sign under one contract, and then they give it, they'll call it Colorado Cardiology Specialists or something, and then they'll have the same one in Florida and North Dakota. And people don't realize it's like a franchise almost, but you're owned to the company. Now, you have all the advantages where they pay for your CME credits. When a new machine comes out that's millions of dollars, they will buy it, they'll lease to own, and you just get to play with their toys. It's all nice and easy there, but you are owned. And when they say jump, you jump. And when it's weekends or holidays or whatever, you have to go. And you're on call, and being on call is special. I mean, to me, you can't pay me enough to be owned, to be on call that amount of time. I used to be on call when I used to conduct organ transplant retrievals way back in the day. I was on call 24/7 for like 3 years in a row, and I will never do it again. I know what that feels like, and that's the old beepers. But anyway, you're owned, and what is that freedom worth? And most importantly, that freedom was shown with laser-focused neon flashing over COVID. Because here you are, doctors who are told whether they agreed with the pseudo vaccine or not, you don't take it, you lose your job. And it's not like if you're a surgeon, you just decide, oh, I'm just going to work for the restaurant, because you have all these bills. If nothing else, a student loan for a lot of these people you're paying off. Not to mention, a mini mansion and all these other bills. You can't just go work at some other job. You have it. And what trade do you have? These doctors went from high school to college to medical school to the residency, internship. I mean, they've never had a lemonade stand. They've never done anything else except everyone tells them how smart they are. And then they become a doctor. And now all you know is the system. So you are entrapped by that system. And so when they say, here's an experimental drug tested for 1 week from Dr. Fauci, you got to take it. All right, sir, I'll take it, unless you just quit. Now, a lot of nurses quit because nurses, you can do home health care. But for doctor, and you can go independent. Our friend Andrea, who was a friend of Freedom's Phoenix, wound up doing that. Many people, many nurses. But doctors really were not in that situation. I mean, you could go solo and be cash only and do consulting, but where the money are the procedures, and usually with the surgery. And you can't just do that in your, in your basement or something and set up your own surgical ward, plus all the regulations. The other part to this is the money itself. It's interesting how our economy, or the way we're set up, and being the international dollar standard of the world, the reserve currency, and I want to segue into the economy. That's what I want to start talking about. But before I do, it's interesting how the architect of the Mar-a-Lago Accords has stated straight up that being the international reserve currency is a bad thing for America, because it forces the dollar to be strong, and then it forces companies to leave and ultimately weakens America. So it was looked at as a strength, has backfired. You could say, it didn't have to be that way, or it was inevitable. That's another discussion for the Peter Schiffs and all of them to debate. But it created a world of, you just print money up and consumerism. A strong dollar, then you can buy things, and then consumerism. And so now we get rid of religion, and now you worship the credit card, and how many toys you have, how big your house, flip a house, we're going to do this, and how many cars and leases and disposable technology that's obsolescence, all of this. And so in order to keep up with, and then of course there's the debt, you get into the debt and the credit cards, or they trap you, like I said, with doctors and other people. And so your daughter was in a great position, plus the way she was raised, where not that you guys are poor, but the idea that Savard and I will talk about. It's good when you live poor and you know how to live poor, because they can't get you, right? Because, you know how to live without all the trappings, right? Ernie even told me this a long time ago about you have to be careful you don't have too much stuff. You have stuff, that's how they trap you, and it's absolutely true. So, it's interesting how consumerism leads to our own self-entrapment, which they know that they get you. So in order to shed all that, it's sort of the tenet of Buddhism, which I know quite a bit about, or at least enough. Or Star Wars, which is all about the Jedi, lack of attachment, right? And the more you can decouple and detach from material things, that will set you free. And the older I get, I've never been a consumerist, to be honest. I really haven't. I mean, I'm in the older age. I'm in that prime demo where I have a few dollars. I can buy a couple fun, stupid things, just for my age. But compared to my friends and other doctors who, let's just say they live pretty large, and I'm sure that money, a lot of it's not being saved, but it's how they grew up. So anyway, it's the consumerism that's entrapped us, and I think getting rid of that is definitely a way out.
We
But
went through this when we did the
well.
Love Bus
You,
Liberty
I,
Tour.
Savarda, many people we know.
We went
grew
to
up
that adventure. It was because we were getting too fat. We had a nice place up there on Port-au-Prince, in the farm lot that we had, a couple of acres, and I really enjoyed it. I mean, it was nice. I had my workshop. I had a barn that was out there. I had a big garage. We had big place, pool, animals. We were, experimenting on a lot of aquaponics and square foot gardening and, creating all kinds of stuff. And had up to 50, 70 chickens. I mean, we were fine. But it became obvious to me how dependent we were still on the grid, the system. I knew it was coming, and I'm going, we are way too fat. And I could see what was coming with our vaccine education summits that we had with Dale Bigtree and Judy Mikovits and a bunch of other great people, and we were just like, damn, here we go. I can see we have to get lean, and we got to do an advocacy for people, a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the show. Took the show on the road, traveled the country with the intention that we were going to occupy the land afterwards. That was, we need to get out and start all the stuff that we've learned, all the stuff that we need to do before we're too old and feeble and can't do it to actually do it. I just found yesterday or day before a video of when we were building the prototype in Washington for one of the domes. We had 3, that we were doing. And a friend of mine, supporter up there, had big farm, hundreds of acres. He said, yeah, pick that ridge up, peace out, do what you want. So we did. And it's theirs now, but we wanted to be able to demonstrate, can we build, but the big thing was not, I knew we could do it. I mean, I'd muscle it through, but the big thing was, could I do it? I was over 60. Was I capable of doing it? Could I create a method by which I could do this without heavy equipment? Now, I got the tractor and heavy equipment because that makes it a hell of a lot easier. But, could I do this and build on land out in the desert for my family, for the next generation, for my grandkids, for them to take on in a truck? Could I physically, Donna and I, do it? Yes. Okay, let's do it. So that is what our mindset was. That is how we got into what we wanted to do and why we wanted to do it and how we were going to do it. So this is what our motivation was. But behind it was Freedom's Phoenix, Declare Your Independence radio show, a lot of our activism. We understood what was coming.
Most of my doctor friends at all. For instance, we rent a house, over owning one as an example. So there's many ways to decouple from it and prepare, including being with the two of us, including me marrying a fellow naturopath who's a cash doctor. So neither one of us has these sort of trappings. So we are flexible. We are able to, get medicine from, prescription drugs if need be, or from the desert outback. We can do it from the health food store. So it gives us freedom. The fact that I don't worry about Obamacare as much, except you have to pay the extortion tax in case I get, hit in a car wreck or something. But is that being a doctor in a sense also gives us the freedom. When I know the anxiety when you have a rash or a cough and you don't know what it is, and the first place people think is I have a cancer. It's a lot of peace of mind that I have to remind myself, and with Savarda too, of that we don't have the anxiety that most people have. What's going on? And then, where your child, the fact that we can diagnose our own child here in our house, and we already know whether that we really have a problem or not, or what to do. So
one of the things that you and I had done early on was you took us out to Peter Bigfoot, which is a guy that lives out in the freaking desert, and a lot of tinctures and a lot of plants and what made him famous is like in the 70s or something, they're going on in the news, everybody's hiking out in the desert and they're dying and it's death, dying, destruction desert. Yeah. And he was like, because you don't know what the hell you're doing. That's why he goes, look, drop me off out in the middle of the freaking 100 mile from whatever in the desert. I'll come out a week later and, healthier and more powerful, kind of whip ass. Let's do it. So he did, because he knew how to live in the desert. Well, that got him a lot of attention, and eventually there was a canyon that he was, I don't know, they created a 501c, whatever the hell. He wound up, but the draw there was people who were afraid for the zombie apocalypse, thermonuclear war, World War III. We were at the Cold War with the Soviets. That's what started him. Now he's, God, in the 80s or so. I just saw him last year. We went out there and did a show, and he created a plate that was a nice plate in the desert, but it had a spring. So what he had created with the knowledge of the desert, the ability to survive, it's a food thing. He's doing great, has been for decades. This is what Phranq took myself. I don't know if Donna went or not, I don't remember. But you and I went up there, and we spent a couple of days with your dad, I think it was. And we, hung out and helped him, and he shared all kinds of stuff with us. And, time and pressure. And after a couple of decades, this is what you can get. So there's a lot of inspiration for people. And then we had friends, Dennis and Karen, that read. They, big Lovolutionaries. They're a little bit older than me. We go to the Jackalope Freedom Festival. Was the first thing that they were teaching everybody. The botanicals that they learned from Peter Bigfoot. So this was, it's just amazing how much knowledge there is out there. And you're starting to see web pages, books, a lot of research, YouTube channels on this older way of how the hell did humanity freaking survive? How did we make that? My kingdom for a bottle of NyQuil.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to go, raid this other kingdom over there because they got the cure of whatever the hell. So, this is, it's right there.
I won't go into it now. But there was just one example. If you guys are curious, look online about how people survived living in the Arizona desert before air conditioning. Just that alone will blow your mind about ways of surviving. Yeah.
Well, they have the one of these Victorian era,
so anyway,
era houses downtown.
Why don't you finish your Ernie, please finish your point. There's a delay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm trying to finish.
So finish your point.
There is a home called the
so I want to talk about the economy.
The something
house.
Finish
your point there.
Down,
I'm sorry about that. There's a delay.
I know. So stop talking. So there is a home downtown Phoenix that is Victorian era, and you can do a tour, and it's called the something house. I can't remember. And it was about how people in the Phoenix desert, how they survived during the summer months. Well, a lot of people, they would do like in Italy, they'd leave Rome, go in the mountains, and come back, after the summer kind of deal. But, of course, not everybody can do that. So this was, there's a lot of ways, and we're living it. Donna and I, I'm in a bus at 110 degrees. How the hell are you doing that? Well, because we got solar. We can power a bunch of stuff. I don't have enough, any more solar panels. Well, what are you going to do? More solar panels. Well, how are you going to, more solar panels? That's how we're going to do it. We got a swimming pool and the pump and, the cooler and the air conditioner and the bed. Solar panels. So this is self-contained with the bus. It's, it's not, it's a big bus. We got, enough room for just the two of us. And we have grandkids come over. We have the living room area. We got, a TV in the living room area and in the bed. We're not suffering that much. But it was because we planned for it. And we have the studio built in. We have Starlink. We needed Starlink. That was one of the things, and it came online while we were prepping to go here. So this is, it can be planned for. You can do it. We're demonstrating it. It's occupytheland.org. You can see what we're doing. And it is an inspiration for others because we're going to have to, because of the economy that's coming. That Phranq wants to talk about the economy. Talk about the economy. Go, Phranq.
Wow, thanks for the segue. Yeah, sorry about that annoying delay going back and forth. That's what happened. All right, so do you happen to know who Stephen Moran is, or did you happen to know him? He's kind of the current czar for Donald Trump's economic policies. Yeah, I mean, some people it looks like Moran, but it's more. I believe it's pronounced Mirren, sort of like Helen Mirren, the actress. So to keep it right, why don't you start? Go ahead, because I know you like to be distracted when I talk and do something else. So that's tangential. But look up Wikipedia. You can put in, if you like, the Mar-a-Lago Accord. I'm not going to be reading this thing, of course, but Stephen Moran, or Mirren, is the chair of the Council on Economic Advisors, and he's basically kind of the one that's promoted, I think, to Trump or got in his ear about his idea of, dare I say, fixing the economy. Now, I know there's no fixing. I don't want to trigger Ernie there, but what are you going to do? I heard something. Someone who's not really a pro Bitcoin guy. He's kind of slowly adopting it and kind of warming up to Bitcoin. He's a diehard gold miner person. Not to bring up names, but he had said that one of the things that opened him a little bit with Bitcoin, aside from learning how it works, which a lot of these people don't like it, don't really know much about it, but he said that Michael Saylor, obviously of MicroStrategies, now AKA Strategies, he had said, for those of you that poke holes at it, I get it. You're all wrong, but I can understand some of your concerns, which I think are valid concerns, such as, putting the entire economy into electronics. I mean, talk about something that could be unstable, forgetting about hash rates. I mean, it's electronic. I mean, and we're just a few years in human terms into computers, and now we're going to take the entire economy and digitize it and put it in the hands of people that most people don't understand. Gold, you can see it in your hand. When it comes to crypto and blockchain, I mean, people just, they just don't grasp it, and you're just trusting a system. And when you have one system that's collapsing in front of you, that was already, too big to comprehend, and now we're going to replace it with something even more complicated. I don't know. There's, and I'm not trying to oversimplify this. Ernie and I can get into the technicals all day with some of this, but what this Michael Saylor had responded to many of these types of critiques was essentially, well, what the hell are you doing about it? So many words. In other words, it's a solution. So we know the system's breaking. We know it's going to collapse. And so what's your plan? Now, of course, some people might say, well, yeah, I'm buying silver. That's certainly a plan. But that's one way to survive it. But is there a way to fix it? And Bitcoin is a way, if not fixing, but to, I don't know what word you would use.
To make him a shitload of money.
That's Ernie about fixing, but just how do we go? Well, no, exactly. But where do we go from here? Ultimately, there's got to be a solution. Thing is, I mean, it's going to break. But where do we go? Do we just go right back to another fiat currency? Do we suddenly go back on a metal standard? And if so, how do we do that in the digital world? Because it's not like the old days. You walk around and you hand someone a silver coin in the saloon or a gold coin like it used to be. Now, in this community, that's how we do it. I get that. And I'm sad to say, but that's not going to work for most transactions, for most people walking around with silver and gold coins, especially in today's world of swiping and all the rest, for a whole host of reasons. Nothing else. The system wants to control you with digital access, and most Americans, dumbasses they are willing to give up their freedoms for that convenience. So, that's a whole other debate. So Saylor's point is well taken. But what other option is there to so-called deal with this economy? If imagine, you're well, I don't want to say Ron Paul's example, but if you're someone that's, thinking they could try to fix it, what do you do? I mean, what do you at least try? And so I want to just preface all this with, whether Donald Trump's plan is going to work or not, I respect him for the people he's putting in, that he's at least trying something, with every cannonball shooting at him from all sides. On top of the whole Epstein thing, which I won't rant again about that again, but so many things, all this incoming, what do you do? So apparently that's where the Mar-a-Lago Accords are stemming from. And it's in process right now, probably unraveling over the next year or so, probably trying to get some notable successes before the midterms. You certainly know this whole thing collapsing on the midterms, but it's a very touchy, precarious situation. So it seems like what we're trying to do are certain strategies to reposition America. So one is to weaken the dollar. As I said earlier, his belief is that the reserve currency made us strong, made us great in the short term, but we just overplayed our hand. People got greedy, the consumerism, blah, 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 and we created this problem. So to bring businesses back, we need to weaken the dollar, which doesn't sound good to a lot of economists, but, you know, it's going to happen anyway. So let's just feed into it, but let's try to control the deflation or the lack of purchasing power. And in other words, instead of just having a free fall, I mean, you know it's going to fall, but it's like, you know, does the building collapse from a bomb, or do you have a controlled demolition? And my impression is they're trying to do a controlled demolition on this. So first off, we have what is it? What was it? Independence Day? What was it? Freedom Day Trump did with all the tariffs. Liberation Day. So you have Liberation Day, and you hit the tariffs. Okay, so that makes the dollar, you know, a less appealing in a sense. Then of course we're going to keep printing it up. That's another issue. But we also want to keep interest rates low. Strangely enough, that you know reduces the want for the U.S. dollar. So you might say, why would we do such a thing? Well, apparently it's because of the $9 trillion debt to be refinanced at the end of the right. Interest debt is incredible. So, you know, he's trying to make it more appealing by not having to spend as much on that debt by lowering the interest rates. So, but in order to lower it, he has the problem of the Federal Reserve, which is supposed to be an independent body, which most Americans now know is not an independent body. It's just like everything else, including doctors, you know, except for naturopaths typically, you know, they're all part of a system and they're all controlled. So now it's just fait accompli. But he needs now the Fed to lower it for this plan to work. And so he's been threatening Powell. That, you know, they're going head to head with Powell. So instead, he decides to shoot a shot across the bow, and he fires one of the federal governors, the Federal Reserve governors, which is Lisa Cook. And I'm assuming it's on Freedom's Phoenix somewhere. I'm sure you have it up there. But he fires her, and that's essentially a warning to all of the other Fed Reserve governors that, you see, you know, I will do it. It's kind of like when Ronald Reagan, I think, fired a few of the air traffic control people as a warning to say, look, you know, I will do it. And he did it. But that's what is apparently happening. And he's threatening the others. You go along with me and be on my leash. Otherwise, you're out. Now, you could, on one hand, complain that's the last thing that we want is a president who's now directly controlling the economy in that regard. That's not the role of the president. However, we are at this implosion point, and you know, I know I'm not going to make any friends on either direction here. From a straight libertarian point of view, just, you know, government stays out of the whole thing, let it implode, and just free market figures it out. And I would agree with that, except we have crony capitalism and so many other trappings. I don't think, you know, and plus that's not Trump's modus operandi. So I'm sure he wants to feel like he's trying to help in some way. Whether we agree it's the right move or not, it's not what I'm trying to argue here. I'm just pointing out that he's doing something, and his idea is to, you know, if he has to bludgeon, you know, and be a leader the way he sees it, you know, tough times need tough leaders and tough decisions that may not be popular. That's, I'm sure, how he sees it. And he is a leader. So he's deciding, all right, you know, we're going to lower interest rates hook by crook. So we'll weaken the dollar and then pay off the interest cheaper. Then we have the tariffs. And by doing this, it'll help force companies to come back to America and for the manufacturing base. So once we weaken the dollar, it should be easier for that to happen. And that's on top of course, hopefully getting rid of regulations and the rest. And a big what if, assuming that MAGA is still around and Vance or whoever continues the legacy of Trump, or this can continue. If this is a one-term presidency, all this is moot. And what company is going to pack up a factory and bring it here when, you know, the Trump's already losing steam and losing his base, a lot of it over Epstein, which is why I made such a big deal about that earlier. So it's almost like he's trying to both sweeten the pot for some and sour the milk for others with this handling of the economy. So Anyway, this is the Mar-a-Lago Accords, and I'm gonna just mention at the end. These are the strategies that he's talking about. So, and I won't read the whole thing. This is on the wiki that you probably already looked at. He wants to use tariffs as a strategic tool, currency offset theory. This one I will read. He says he argues that tariffs do not necessarily lead to inflation at home if the dollar strengthens in response. A stronger dollar can reduce the price of imported goods, offsetting the cost of tariffs and lowering the real income of foreign exporters. And then the new international currency agreement, which is why they're calling it the new Mar-a-Lago Accords. He's basically, this whole accord is mirroring, but slightly different than the more modern Plaza Accord, which was in 1985. Yeah, Ernie might have more to say on that one. I don't remember that. But says which refers to, anyway, in unilateral options if diplomacy fails, burden sharing within the reserve currency system, trade and security alignment, and industrial revival and deregulation. So you guys can read that on your own if you'd like about more information.
Social and
then
economic
his partner
engineering.
in crime, like Robin the Batman here, is Scott Bessent. Yeah, yes, that's exactly. And Scott Bessent, he's the Treasury Secretary, many of you know, and he is, apparently working together with Miran to put this together. I do believe, though, that Miran is the one really to watch. He's the one that has made comments, and I don't know if they slipped out by accident or it's all by design, and that's him talking about this restructuring. I haven't heard it much from me with Scott Bessent, but Stephen Miran, he seems to really believe this, like he has an Austrian bone in him, and he's probably the one that's been really whispering in Trump's ear. Oh, and I forgot the most important of all of this entire strategy. What was I thinking? So add to everything I talked about, about the tariffs and deflating the dollar and all of this, is pumping up gold as a revaluation. Now, they haven't said that straight up, but man, oh man, if you're paying any attention, in my belief, not investment advice, but I don't see where else that there tells. They should just be using a bullhorn at this point, in my opinion.
And it doesn't matter,
right? Because if you follow the strategies that he is outlining, that he is outlining, and they're even put on Wiki, and they're not fighting it. So these are their stated opinions, but they're not talking about gold, because if they talk about revaluing gold, then of course gold prices go up, and they're doing this on the down low, right? This is going to be a surprise Tuesday when they pull this off. Everyone's trying to acquire gold, the central banks, and not change the price. We talked on the show about China that's buying the slurry, or whatever the term is, of the last mud, the concentrate. Yeah. So China's buying it from like Brazil and Argentina and some of these mines. I think it's called effluent or something like that. But they're buying the last step that's unprocessed. So therefore, it's not technically gold. So they don't have to report it to the World Gold Authorities. So therefore, people don't know how much gold China really has, and they're not changing the gold price. So that's how they're getting around it. Then you have America that was importing since Trump won the election, which is still a mystery to me why, who was in control of that change. But we have now imported more gold since Trump was elected than the entire time since 1941 until now. Like we didn't import any gold or gold reserves at all, except probably confiscating it from other countries in Lebanon or someplace. But we wound up, buying more gold than ever in 80 years, just in the last number of months. So China's doing on the down low. Someone here in America
because they're going to get audited.
Bars. This is not consumer retail investors. So there we go. Yeah. So now you have all this gold coming in, and a lot of talk about revaluing gold. Trump talking about who has the gold makes the rules. Miran, hinting about gold. He's been a gold bug in the past. So therefore, it looks like there could be a revaluation. So therefore, it shows to the world that there's something backing our dollar. So we're devaluing it in one level. But we're giving something else, like a bone to the rest of the world, saying, yes, we are destroying our own dollar to our own people but we still want to make it attractive and throw something that we can offer if you still support our economy as we go through this transition. We're going to put some real value with gold. So I guess eventually I have to do an audit or something to prove to the world that we do have the gold, because I don't think anyone's going to believe it at this point. And then you can take off a lot of debt, not too much, but you can take off some debt and give some breathing space for this plan to work, if it's ever chance of working, in order to give some breathing room, maybe knock off 20% of the debt as an example. That could take quite an edge off the interest payments for a few years at least, by revaluing gold from $42 up to whatever. That's whatever the horse race is going to be $9,000, $15,000, $20,000. Some of you guys are thinking it's going to be $150,000, whatever. Consensus seems to be between 10 and 20,000, somewhere there. And of course, that also makes the Chinese really rich if we do that, which is the opposition opinion. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I'm curious your opinions on that, how much you're following it yourself, or is just another, I don't care, doesn't matter, it's done. But that seems to be that his modus operandi of his people trying something at least to change in a different direction. So
not only have I been thinking about it, been taking notes. I did a telegram to the Declare Your Independence channel Sunday night, Monday, and kind of spread around. I said, look, it was from my conversation with my son when he said, because I've been saying on the show, for a long time, I'm going, this crypto thing is to save the dollar. They're going to be able to they want you into crypto, they want to be able to surveil, they want to be able, and they're going to tie it to the dollar. Why would I want to tie crypto to the dollar? It'll just get inflated like everything else. Well, it'll go up. It's going to get inflated like all to hell. The dollar is going to be worth nothing, which means it's going to be, $3,000 Social Security check pays off, loaf of bread that you want. I mean, you could see it coming. Well, Corsair said, he goes, my son's name is Corsair, and he goes, Dad, man, how are you a talk show host? You're so dumb. I mean, you're never a prophet in your own land. And he goes, they're just using crypto as a liquidity sponge. It's just going to, where do you think all those dollars would go if they didn't have the crypto here to do it with? Why do you think these big banks, Central, BlackRock, they, them, though, everybody's buying crypto? Woo! We just opened it up. We did the Genius Act. Trump did it. What do you think? You think he doesn't know? Of course he knows. What they're doing is that they have enormous amounts of all of these inflated dollars that are coming home. They got to put it somewhere. And if they don't have the crypto to do it, with the promise of, woohoo, we're going to be filthy, stinking rich, we got to put it in the crypto. Because if they did gold and silver, it would shoot up. And it has the trait that they do not want to support. It's private. They don't know about it. People start trading in goldbacks. So I see goldbacks being a thing. Goldbacks are polymerized, very beautiful bills that, have a polymer on both sides and actual vapor deposited gold in different weights onto a bill. These bills, have so many, and they'll call them ones and fives and whatever, but it's not dollars. It's in the amount of gold that's in it. How many, 0.00 whatever grams or something. So you want to audit it? Get a blowtorch, put it in a crucible, melt it down. There's your gold. It's on you. This technology. It's called, how is it? Beryllium or something is the company, and we have friends that are invested in that company long time ago. What they used to do is it was a technology that was invented by, I think, some Washington State University professor or something, this vapor depositing, which I used to do in my battery lab. I still have the equipment here. I haven't put it out. But, in my lab that I had in my home, I would deposit using methane as the source gas mixed with argon and inert gas, blah, blah, blah. If you get it to a tube furnace at a certain temperature, you would separate the hydrogen from the carbon, and the carbon would self-assemble in carbon nanotubes. And I was making graphene. Well, that was for me to make high-density batteries. Well, I'm just doing it because freaking nobody else is. Well, how come they're not doing this? All of a sudden, then it becomes a thing. So they were using, it's called vapor deposition, and they're doing the same thing with gold to get an exact amount of gold deposited onto these layers of polymers that you have these different designs. They're beautiful colors and everything. And they look gold. Just do a search on gold backs and you'll see it. I'll pull it up. But I can see that is what is coming, and that is what they are afraid of, where people have their own people money in the form of gold. This is why we were pumping silver, the silver dime cards and so on. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. Here are gold backs. They're actual gold. They have different states, Utah, New Hampshire, Texas, whatever they have, these for each state. Now, there are about 11 to 20-something states that have as legal tender now gold and silver and copper. Arizona has that. You can pay your taxes in gold. I remember, and we have Tim Pachot on this later this afternoon. I don't know if you went that day, but Ron Paul came and testified before the Arizona legislature in support of them doing this.
Yes, I was in the back of the room. That was a packed room, standing only for that.
And they were like, damn it. Well, that was becoming a thing. Well, we did for our centennial, which was in 2012, because 1912, so we had our centennial 100 years later, that we had put into legislation that, because secret, they didn't know we wrote it, but it was a Senator, Karen Johnson, a conservative, John Bircher type, that she's like, Ernie, how do we, this Amero thing, they're going to we got to have something, real money kind of. So Pal and I wrote the legislation that made Arizona mined gold, silver, and copper to create medallions, plural, to supply all public demand for gold and silver as currency. Well, when we wrote that, they kept, no matter what they voted on the floor, no matter what amendment, whatever, we get it. By the time it went through legislative council and goes back to the legislator that sponsored it, Karen, she'd have us come in and read it. They always took out two things. One, medallion. They wanted it in singular, not plural. And sufficient quantity to supply all public demand. They definitely took that out. Who was doing that? Who changed the laws that were made on? See, I don't believe a freaking thing that these guys do. I don't think I know. I know. They do it right in front of you. So this is, I don't care. Don't care. It has to be people money. We determine its value. We audit it. We put it in the crucible and melt it down. We got the dime cards. We do the trading. We have the privacy crypto. We got faith in, not they, them, those, GoldmanSachs.gov coin money. So this is what I see is coming. So in that, I started taking notes for an article, and I put the highlights of the notes and some links and sent it to, inside crowd of, my peoples. And then you get the things we've had shows and articles on this. The atomic weight of gold and tungsten. When they're starting to have a rash, they're repatriating, these different countries want their gold, and they're doing delivery from different places, whatever, and the Chinese start drilling into and cutting up and melting down bars, and they go, what the shit? It's tungsten, and coated with a veneer or little plated or eighth of an inch or whatever of gold on the outside. And the reason is because the atomic weight of gold and the atomic weight of tungsten is barely any difference. It's 183.84 is the atomic weight of gold. 183.86 is tungsten. It's almost identical. So you're going, damn, it's like, oh, we're just painting lead bars gold. You can tell, no, that's, lead is, I don't know, it's like half the density of gold. I mean, it's a significant amount. It's not anywhere near. But tungsten, almost the same. I mean, we're talking 0.02. So I'm going, okay, we got to worry about this tungsten thing. Well, that started becoming a thing. They started, you going to do an audit of the gold in Fort Knox? Well, it better be down to the 0.02, because what happened during the Clinton administration, they kind of went in, it was here a minute ago, it's gone, oh, it's back. I guarantee it is not gold, or all of it is not gold, or they're not, or they would have already done it. This is why they're buying. We're so screwed. This is just saying. So then you go, what was the gold
That's your
price?
summary. I love your summary.
What was the gold price when FDR took it? After the Great Depression started, and so on, they did the confiscation of gold. You had a Treasury agent sitting there, standing by you in every bank. As you opened your safe deposit box, you had so many gold, and confiscate. It's ours now. You're forced to sell it to us. The government's going to do a takings. Well, we're going to make you whole. Well, what was the price of gold? When President Franklin Delano Roosevelt took action to seize gold from U.S. citizens, the price was set at $20.67 per troy ounce. You know what it is now? What's gold set at now? $42. $42 when it's $3,800. Yeah, $3,800 or something like that. $42. What? It was $20.67 per troy ounce. This was the rate at which individuals were required to exchange their gold coin, bullion, or certificates with the Federal Reserve under the Executive Order 6102 in 1933. Shortly after the government collected the gold through the Gold Reserve Act of 34, Roosevelt revalued the price of gold to $35 an ounce. From $20 to $35, which is a significant difference. $15, like, I don't know what, 80% or something. I mean, it's just, a lot. And $3,800 is a shit ton more than 42. I can guarantee you that. And it's going to be, God knows what it's going to be. They're not going to let the free market determine. It's going to be, by fiat. It just turns gold into fiat. It's just government declared whatever it's worth they say it is, which don't mean squat. Which is why they're able to have all these contracts. And the gold price that you see is just futures contracts of a 100-ounce bar on what they say it's going to be in however many. It's just bullshit. This effectively devalued the dollar and increased the nation's gold reserves, which were used to expand the money supply. That's what they want to do, expand the money supply again. Well, what do you think it's going to be now? I have no idea. I don't even know if it's even there. It's all bullshit. I don't care. And then what do we have in here? We got the globalists are rebranding their woke capitalism agenda, after crushing setbacks as what? Yeah, whatever the hell they want to call it and control and do it, because Larry Fink is now taking over Klaus Schwab's position at the World Economic Forum. We do away with Klaus Schwab, which he was under attack and he spent the money wrong and he's got to do whatever and we're suing and this and that and everything. And then there's some, a settlement of whatever. Court settlements are not taxable. This is how billionaires, sling money around. You just sue them, then pay a big thing, and it's not taxable to transfer of I got it, now you got it. Through a court, and we avoided taxes because you sued me. This is, seriously, the day that Klaus Schwab was within a day or two, within 48 hours for sure, 24, 12, that nothing to see here, we're not prosecuting, it's over and done with, boom, Larry Fink becomes head of the World Economic Forum. Can't make this stuff up. So I got that, buzzing around. Then you have, nobody knows what's real. Here come the aliens! In the past 10 years, the New York Times has run stories about secret Pentagon programs tasked with retrieving alien craft. Members of Congress have held hearings on mysterious orb, the military, blah, 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 blah. Aliens. Here come the aliens. Why? Because we got to have aliens. It's just the way it is. You can see it coming. They got Tesla robo-trucking is now looking at bigger profits than the robo-taxi. Why? Because trucking is going to be robo-taxi. Trucking, they have ships, very cheap. Rail, extremely cheap. Maybe not as fast as FedEx trucks, whatever, cheap. When you have robot Tesla semis, 3 in a line, the drag on them gets to the point to where it's cheaper to use trucking with robots in this, convoy than it is to do rail. So what's going to happen? When they go in the Clinton administration, when he was running for re-election in '96 or whatever it was, I remember that Mario Cuomo gets up there and he's going, speaking for the nomination at the Democratic National Convention, and he's going, yeah, they just say, well, you don't know how to learn the code. And he's given the description of, the big-fingered, meaty hooks of the, a truck driver doesn't know how to kind of, the manufacturing going overseas, and he's going to code and kind of, that's a bad picture of, well, that's not, we need to have, jobs here. We need to have, well, what is it? Trucking. It's enormous. Hundreds of thousands of people are employed by driving, which is going to robots. So when you go to, AI has taken the job of teachers, journalists. What do you tell them? Learn to code? You need to learn to freaking weld. You got to take the preparation. You got to go out. The next generation better learn how to freaking build a house. You better something. You better know how to grow food. I remember having Jim Rogers on, billionaire biker. He was on Charles' show when I was producing for him every week. I would call him for, a year. I'd call him all around the world. He'd be in New York, Shanghai, whatever. And, he has a daughter that's now probably like 20 years old that doing what Phranq's doing with Phaedra, that he wanted her to learn Mandarin. He saw Chinese was going to be the future. So he got a Mandarin nanny for her, and this little girl speaks fluent English now. Mandarin Chinese. Well, during that time when he was having her, and he was an older guy, he had to get a younger wife, whatever, have a daughter. So he was talking about how the rich people driving around the Ferraris are going to be the farmers. No. What do? They take out the family farm. You're not allowed. They do whatever they can, put you in debt, whatever. It's just like Phranq being a naturopathic prostate doctor of doing it for cash. Nope, they get these doctors in with enormous debt. They get them in under the contract with the hospital. They have all this kind of, the big pharma and big healthcare and big hospital kind of control, and you're our bitch. Well, Phranq was like, nope, we're doing cash. I'm going out here, fix things and heal people. Well, you better start either healing people or fixing things. And, fixing things is not as regulated, but it's coming. Why? Because they want control. They don't want you to survive. There are no plans for retraining humans after AI takes their jobs. Guess why? Control. They don't care. They don't even need you. You're just useless eaters now. So AI in the form of a Tesla robot, that's going to be what? Well, I could use a, AI robot. I don't want their chest to turn red and get uploaded like an iRobot with Will Smith, and all of a sudden you're not allowed to leave and I kill you in your sleep. Screw that. I need my own AI. I don't want going outside. I want Jarvis, not Alexa. So if I could have, there's a lot of just doing, holding. I had to, by myself, just working on the shipping container. I need to hold some things in place as I was doing pressure to glue, whatever. And I got to, it was a pain in the ass to do by myself. I did it, but I didn't want to have Donna come out there just, she's taking out 20 minutes of her day just to walk out the, whatever, just a pain. Come over here, robot, hold this. That's what jaw horses are for. There's a little vice clamp thing that I use that a lot. Why? Because you need an extra set of hands. And oh my God, if they actually know how to plant a seed, then what? So AI is, that's cool, but I don't need it to control me. Well, what do you think it's going to get subsidized to do? to control you. I guarantee you that. This is the weirdest building you'll ever see. There's no windows. We got in the metropolitan area, this big building. All it is collecting data. You know, they got these all over the place, and that's one thing I was building up to. I think it was Phranq that sent it. I don't remember. It was the data centers and why electric bills here are shooting up so much. All of these data centers, all of this crypto mining.
Yeah, that
all
was
of
I mentioned
this
last
stuff.
week we covered it.
And all it is that it's not even the increase in the price of your electricity. It's the fees. It's the build, having you pay for they, them, those, building their nuclear reactors, peaker plants, natural gas, coal, whatever it takes, fusion, it doesn't matter, but you're paying for it to build them a power station to run their crypto mining and their AI centers. To do what? To scrape all your data up. You're paying for it. Think, yeah, you want to build on your factory? You want to build? Yeah, peace out. Go do your own damn stuff. Build your own. No, wait, but I got to pay for it? Kiss my ass. Well, that's what's going on. To do what? To control you more. Then you have this kid. The show is it's under robots and artificial intelligence. We put it under. What was the headline that we did? I don't remember. And Palantir AI. There's a story about a lot of these kids that get into artificial intelligence. They're at MIT. They go, whoa. We are the foot soldiers for Terminator. They're wanting to control every bit of data, scrape every bit of. They're doing. This is the technocracy is coming, and this is it. And they want us. No, we're out of here. We're going to do it ourselves. We're consolidating with other people, and we're starting to try and protect humans from. Well, this is what Elon Musk was going on about. He's going, yeah, you need a Neuralink to be able to defend against the AI. Well, you first, but I mean, do you trust him? That, less and less, but I'm telling you, this is what's coming. It's all about control, which is why it's going to be a food thing. You want to control the people, you do it with food. Occupy the land, grow your own food, build your own home, educate your own kids. Because if you are inside this system, you will be controlled. And whatever incentives they put to your employer, to yourself, in the form of taxes and exemptions and all this other stuff, for you to put and pool your money into a pension, a 401k, that then they use, and it's gone. That's what's coming. They're doing it right, not later. The United States Federal Reserve, new supervision chief, sold on bringing crypto to finance. Well, of course they are. The U.S. stablecoins, the Genius Act, all yada, 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 yada. They have to save the dollar. The petrodollar. How are they going to save it? They got to have somewhere to suck up all that liquidity, all that inflation, all those extra dollars. They go BRICS, they go, gold, back currency. The BRICS talk about all they have to do is have, a little perfume atomizer, squirt, squirt, squirt. You go, I want a dry martini. Well, what's martinis? I don't know, vermouth and, vodka or something, okay? So a dry martini, that means that it has, less vermouth or something. Spray it on. They just got to put a drop in there or something. Ooh, it's dry. Well, that's how they're going to do gold. It's going to be a dry gold. It's going to be paper. It's going to be a crypto. It's going to be matched to some kind of whatever, it's gold. Because it used to be, we saved these. I still have some of these, they call them silver certificates. It looks just like a dollar bill. But it's, back in the day, because when they confiscated all the gold and all that kind of stuff, the Federal Reserve notes that it says now, it said silver certificate. You could take in that dollar and get an ounce of gold or silver. You get silver for it. It was a silver certificate. It was a certificate for silver, because silver, a dollar, is defined as 0.7.
It said at the top. It said at the top, for at the very top where now this Federal Reserve note, it would say redeemable in gold or redeemable in silver. And then that's when they, just disappeared. Federal Reserve notes, very clever. They kept everything else exactly the same except changed the title.
Silver
well, Ernie, look,
certificate.
I have to get going. It's been a
okay,
while.
well, I'm almost done.
I
Let
just
me
want
finish.
to end on, and as far
let me finish.
Quick.
The silver certificate, when you go, the reason we were doing the silver dime cards, on the back we had the weight. In circulated silver, they bring it down a little bit. It's 0.0715 or something like that. Because it was, so a silver dollar is 10 times that, which is what? 0.77. That's Morgan dollars. So a silver dollar is not 1 ounce of silver. So people, if you don't know that, they would go, oh yeah, you buy this and they charge you an ounce of silver, which is like $38 now, but you'd only get, 0.77, of an ounce of silver. You got ripped off because you don't know. So we wanted to make sure people knew. So we did that. So then, here I got one more here. We got the federal, they're revaluing the gold right after they confiscate, right after they get it, right after whatever they'll revalue it when the government has it. And then we had this story, the real reason your power bill doubled. It's not inflation. It's you paying for all of this data center surveillance. And it's going to suck up a bunch of water. And, which is one reason why I'm not a big giant fan of getting a well they got to pay a gazillion dollars for. They're going to suck down and straw down the data center. It doesn't have there anymore anyway, and you got to push pin in where everybody's got a well. So this is, if you aren't self-sufficient and doing rainwater in the desert even, we're making sure we can do that. This is why I do the things that I do. Occupy the land is a solution to a lot of this crap. All right, wind us up, Phranq. You're muted. You got to do it all over again.
Yeah, well, I said, wow, I was able to talk. I was muted so long I forgot. So, yeah, for the audience, there is about just so you know, Ernie, I think it's like a 15-second, it feels like, delay of whatever it is, just so you can work out. I know you have your new system here. So, yeah, to end up, first off, as far as the gold and silver backs, or the gold backs, for those of you interested, of course, you can collect them. It's the problem with the gold backs right now is I just sensed that there's still kind of a numismatic part to it. So, I mean, I think when they become more circulated and well known, it'll get rid of the novelty. But right now, the novelty is making them collectibles, which in itself does help drive the market, for people to have it. At least they know there's still some value to it. And as gold keeps going up, strangely enough, you can buy it now with the NUMI value, and it'll probably catch up to what you paid.
But it's got a premium for its convenience, just like gold premiums are.
It was, I believe, it was Nevada. So. Yeah, no. This is more than a premium. I mean, there's if you want to buy, so the first state was Nevada, or I'm sorry, Utah. Utah was the first state, and they have the first series. It was 2019. So if you want to get the full series, $1, $5, $10, whatever, it goes up to 100, I think. But if you get the whole series, it's like $3,200 to get the whole series, because that was the first time any state had ever released it. And it's the proof of concept. And so like having, Superman #1, which is actually Action Comics #1. But anyway, in order to get that, you're paying a big NUMI fee. So, but now when you get the Utah 2025, you're not paying for the NUMI fee as much. But I still think, though, because all the artwork, they changed the artwork. It's beautiful artwork. And so for many people, it's the collectible and the artwork. It's a little bit like the Chinese 1 ounce gold coin, or any of their gold coins with the pandas, right? Many of you collect gold. The pandas are kind of unique. China wanted to make gold coins something fashionable. So they know that women love pandas, and they kind of sold it to women or the men to buy it for the women. So they make great gifts for girlfriends, for fiancés, and they change the picture every year. Whereas like a gold eagle is boring as heck. They just changed the year on the coin. In China, it's a whole new design. They have a competition about it, and there's always the pandas doing something cute
Yeah,
and
it's like
whatever.
U.S. postal
And then they
stamps.
make them even
Don't
like
care.
even a quarter ounce. They make them different sizes. Yeah, yeah, but they make them in different sizes so that the women can put them in jewelry. So the pandas are used a lot. I mean, literally, we know golden jewelry. There's like golden jewelry and then golden coins. They combine the two with the pandas. So it's sort of a unique concept, and why the Chinese. There's another way to get people to really invest in gold coins there. But with the gold backs, they are neat. They certainly are really cool. But just watch out for the new meat component. If you just buy the new set, it's probably okay. Also, they are only releasing sets in states that have essentially made the gold a state currency or state money. Florida being one of them. So they have Florida, I think Nevada, Utah. There's a handful of states, but a new state is coming online this year, or maybe it's for next year, and that's the Arizona. So Arizona Series 1, for any of you who are collectors, is coming out now. You cannot pre-order, although I'm definitely buying the Arizona set. I think that'd be pretty cool to have. The artwork's probably going to be pretty killer, a bunch of cactus and things like that. So anyway, just want to throw that out to the audience. The last thing I want to point out is, and I said in the beginning of the show, is about Trump, being this is the Trump report, about Trump's health. I feel in my medical spidey sense gut that there's something wrong. He has a very serious health issue, and I don't know exactly what it is. There have been comments that he's been hiding behind the desk a lot, that he's been doing many interviews from behind the desk ever since people found his let's just say the black and blue mark on his hand, which I said when it first came out, I said it's from an IV. He's getting a butterfly needle in his hand. And typically they do that when they're not able to get and run an IV in his arm, because if it was on his arm, no one's going to see it. So for Trump, it's all about optics and his image. Why would he want to look feeble and weak by people seeing it on his hand? So if they're doing it on the hand, it means they cannot stick them anywhere else. At least my belief of why they're using the hand, because as a doctor, that's the only time you would use the hand. Unless the person's afraid of needles, and sometimes it's less painful at the back of the hand. But anyway, that was not a one-off, and I didn't think it was. It's happening over and over, which is also showing how regular he's getting these IVs. And I doubt it's just pickup juice like Joe Biden was getting. Of course, Joe Biden was also getting the testosterone killer Lupron or Cazadex, some variation of that was wiping out all of his testosterone from the very advanced legally aggressive prostate cancer diagnosis that I believe they figured out after his coincidence or not, after he took the pseudo vaccine. And that's when he was diagnosed. And then Sleepy Joe showed up because they wiped out all of his testosterone. So I did that whole expose on that a few months ago from my doctor mode. Well, anyway, that's the deal with Trump. And he's hiding behind the desk. And some of the thinking, what I've heard, I've not seen this myself, is that his ankles are looking swollen. And with his ankles swollen, he can't hide that one, right? If he can't hide it. So that some people are arguing that's why he's behind the desk a lot, not doing.
So
he's
put
doing
some
interviews
makeup
a bit
on your
differently.
hand and stop eating cheeseburgers.
I'm not an expert in CHF. So I'm not an expert on CHF, congestive heart failure. I'm dealing with the other part of the body, the prostate. That I can talk all day, as I did with Biden. But I know enough to talk. But I'm going to instead finish up. I'm going to play this little video. It's a viral video. It's clearly someone who's not a supporter of Trump. He's a home care nurse, but home care nurses deal with this type of problem a lot, and you can just pick out certain patients. Like, and it sounds kind of tangential, but I have Tourette's syndrome, many of you know. So I can, if someone else has Tourette's, typically they can't hide. Even if they try to hide it, I can just pick it out. It's kind of like when you're an American and you're in a foreign country and you see another white person. I could tell if they're an American or French or non-American. It's just there's a way that they walk, the way they dress. You can just pick them out. And so the same thing here, is that I do put some credit to this home care nurse who's definitely getting a little joy in mocking Trump over it. But it did go viral. Many of you have heard it, and I just wanted to play it. It's just a few. It's not even a minute. But this is a thought that I think there's some credibility to this. But let's,
Push the
because
button.
also Trump has lost weight. He looks very frail and thin. Have you noticed any change with Trump? Does he look weaker to you? I mean, it's blatantly obvious to me, but I'm wondering if you noticed it yourself, or did Donna? Anyone notice?
Hell, I don't look. I don't give a crap. You know, whatever. Just play it.
You're killing me. All right, Jesus. Well, I mean, it's this is a very important issue.
Push
Ernie.
the
It's amazing how you downplay
button!
it. All right, here we go.
B6. The president's congestive heart failure is getting worse. I'm a home health physical therapist with a doctorate in my field. I see congestive heart failure patients on a daily basis. The reason I know that he has congestive heart failure is because of the swelling in his feet and ankles. And the reason I know it's getting worse is because he's sitting behind the desk on camera now. He lashed out against MSNBC for giving him hash about his ankles. This is how we know that something is true, because it gets to Trump. Remember recently where he was talking about going to heaven for some fucking reason? Just people said, I'm not doing very well. I don't think he's talking about the media. I think he's talking about the doctors who are treating him. The only reason his health has been maintained at all is because he has the privilege of getting IV diuretics, spironolactone, Lasix, Bumex, something like that. That's why his hands have been bruised and covered with makeup. Badly, I might add. We know that it's getting worse because he knows he cannot hide the degree of swelling. That's why he's sitting behind the desk. Oh, he also has chronic kidney disease, which is also contributing to the swelling in the feet and ankles. I can't tell you how many times I have seen a patient in their home because they were hospitalized for AKI, or acute kidney injury. The kidney injury was caused by nephrotoxic medications, namely diuretics, spironolactone, Bumex, Lasix. The president is definitely getting sicker. We know he's not going to change his diet because he's such a fucking idiot. I think he's going to be around for 6 to 8 months tops. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
So anyway, so Ernie apparently has no comment, doesn't care, doesn't see any difference. As a doctor, though, again, he looks profoundly thinner and frail, and I was amazed it didn't show up on anyone's radar. Even CNN bashing him, it didn't show up on Fox. I mean, Fox clearly is not going to bring up any weakness of Trump, but it was galling to me to see, and I feel bad. But in my mind, my doctor's sense is that he very well may not, let's say, make it to the end of his presidency. I mean, he's going to be dragged over it if he has to. I'm not saying he's going to do with Joe Biden, but if he does start to get sick, this is going to become an issue because the Republicans made it an issue. You know, the big lie about Biden, right? And we sat there and pummeled the media and everyone for covering for Biden, that there was no reason for him to be president, how it made our country look weak, on and on.
Yeah, but that was a mental
Now, we all
thing.
know Trump is a whole we all know he's a different beast than Donald Trump. But at the same time, if Trump is busy getting IVs nonstop and battling, basically kidney failure, and he's on dialysis nonstop, and they can't control it, then, battling a reset and a collapse and everything else. I mean, look, do I think Trump's going to go down quietly and leave? No. But I do believe, mark my words, I remember I was the first person on your show ever to talk about COVID back in like the end of 2019. I was talking about these Chinese groups that I was interfacing with that were investment groups. Remember, I brought up your show and we were talking about it, and and lo and behold, COVID became a thing. I think his health is going to be a thing. I know Ernie says, I don't care right now, it doesn't matter. But, whether you care or not, it's going to be a thing affecting the world based off of, what happens with him, and whether we have President Vance or however this plays out. I wish him well, despite my issues with Epstein and all. But I'm just saying, I'll be watching it both as an activist, political activist, but also as a doctor, and any more information I get before this goes all mainstream, I'll try to bring it to the show. So anyway, all right, we got to wrap there. I have to get going, but it was nice arguing with you again, Ernie. I think we agreed on most everything. Lastly, I forgot. I wanted to comment at the end about the movies. I'll make this quick. Ernie and I saw a movie together, and strangely enough, I saw two movies on the same day. you know, I don't like to sit through 2 long movies in one day, but I just had to based off of the timing. The first movie was for my daughter, and it is, for those of you who don't know, the most profitable, biggest animation movie in the history of the world. And I may add, it's the largest international release hit in the history of China. And this movie is called Neza, or it's Nezha. It's a 2-part name, and my daughter could probably pronounce it properly. She just laughs at me now because I can't pronounce Mandarin, but it's Neza or something. It's the name of like an 8-year-old boy. It's in Chinese. And this movie, it's an animated movie, and it's basically it's like a Bart Simpson type of Chinese boy, and it takes place in like the old days of China and the Chinese wait, hold on. And the Chinese dragons and Chinese lore. It's almost like if a European made a movie about ancient Greece and Zeus and Apollo. It's sort of like that. But it was CGI. It came out in 2019, the first one, and it made tons of money. It was like their Titanic at the time. So they decided to make a sequel. Of course, that was all during COVID. 5 years to make it, and the sequel came out. And the sequel was sort of like the Dark Knight to the original Batman movie, or The Godfather 2. It wound up being one of those rare sequels that blew the first out of the water. Very complex. And let's just say it's an international hit, the greatest animation movie ever. And most all of you have probably not even heard about it for probably a lot of interesting reasons. This movie has grossed $2.3 billion. Right? I mean, that's more than the Avengers. And so this is this one cartoon movie that most Americans have never heard of. Now, I give credit to the local theater chain Harkins here in Arizona. They did play it for about a week or two, and that's how I heard about it. And a lot of movie reviewers are being pummeled by their audience. Hey, you got to review this movie. So it's the free market working out, and people started to go see it and be gobsmacked after seeing it. The colorful animation, the resolution, the detail. I'm telling you, when you watch this newest movie especially, and then you see a Pixar movie or a current Disney movie, you start to understand how behind we are.
But what about the story?
I mean, not only are our airports are behind, well, the story's great too, but that's not, I mean, the story's great, but a story is like watching a Pixar movie, a very good Pixar movie from the day. There's a message. There's a lot of great characterizations. There's all of that. So yeah, we could talk about it, but the animation is what put it over the top and showing you just from a technical perspective that China now does not need America, right? It's another version of. I mean, before they couldn't make any decent movies. The Asians, the rest of the world did not make any really decent movies. And they would import American movies. They would take 20% of the cut, which used to tick off America. So then America started putting Chinese actors and Chinese themes into the movies. Remember, in the last 8 years, it's like there's some random token Chinese person would be in the movie for the Chinese audience. And then they were undercutting our own culture and making these movies less American to fit for the Chinese markets, which made everyone hate them even more. Well, China was just laughing all the way and decided, like everything, we're going to just copy or steal what they're doing and do it better. And they did. Plus, it's cheaper labor there. So they have 1,000 CGI artists on this. But if you compare the animation to what we're making today, there's no comparison. And it's fascinating to see what CGI can do today when you put quality into it. But we've just been just given slop for so long. People think this is normal, just like all the woke crap that we see in the movies. But even the technical, and I won't do a whole diatribe in the movies because I have to get going. But when we see these movies today, like the new Marvel movies, the Star Wars movies, and most any movie, I mean, do you notice how they have the same gray, drab look to them? They all look and feel alike. A lot of people can't put their finger on why, but it's because they're using the same animators that are overworked, and it's like a production pipeline. There's no care or attention put onto the product
woke animators.
As it used to be like Pixar with John Lasseter. John Lasseter was like the what do you call it, the guy from Apple. my brain's going here. Not Tim Cook. Steve Jobs, Jesus. So Steve Jobs, like the Steve Jobs of Pixar, they fired because they went woke and the Me Too movement to kick the guy out, and then everything's collapsed since then. And now you see China surpassing, in a way, until you see the movie, people listening, until you see this movie, you really just don't know what I'm talking about. And you see just how far ahead Pixar has taken our own quote unquote invention of the movies and CGI animation movies. So anyway, there was that. We saw the movie. Then right after that, I went to meet Ernie to see the, not the newest, but the second newest Godzilla movie made in Japan for Japanese people. It is not the Americanized Godzilla movie with Godzilla and King Kong and all this BS. It's just crap American stuff again. The Japanese learned that they need two Godzillas. They need one for the American audiences to devour and do Americanized, which is, it's like wonton soup or Chinese egg rolls, which is Americanized, right? So they have an Americanized version, which I hate. And then they decided to keep Godzilla to themselves, a different series that's just inherently Japanese. So they made this movie called Shin Godzilla. It came out around 2016, I think. I've talked about it on this show multiple times. Every 6 months, I might bring it up. I say, Ernie, have you seen it yet? He never got around to seeing it. It's not Citizen Kane, but it's a very political movie about Godzilla, and basically takes place today, and asking, in today's political climate, especially the Japanese political climate, and in a world of social media, and, how would an actual event like Godzilla on the issues, the follies of the political system, where where the elders always are the hierarchy over the young people. In America, we have the younger you are, the more attention you get as far as beauty, as far as the demographic targeting of advertisers, and young people drive our culture, whereas in Japan, it's not like that. The elders drive the culture. Very, very different. And so, but that also slows down politics. Back in the day, you would, America would send a steamship to Japan, and they would talk with the leaders, and maybe 2 months later, you in the rice paddy fields would hear about, the Americans spoke to the Japanese leader. You might hear that. Today, everything's instantaneous, but the Japanese system is so bogged down even more than ours in bureaucracy, because it's not just bureaucracy, it's hierarchy and cultural hierarchy. How do you get around that? And this movie outlined it almost comically, but it's true. The way they have parliamentary meetings, discussion meetings, is exactly what you saw in that movie, Ernie. When I lived in Japan, I went to school there, we were learning about international business approaches from other countries to interact with the Japanese. And when I'm advising, let's say, an American corporation CEO how to do trade deals with Japan, that it's not about the money, it's about the culture differences and how Americans often rub Japanese the wrong way and vice versa. And so that's why I'm such a big deal about culture on the show. But it was anyway. It was fun to see. So Ernie, I'm sure enjoyed it from the political bent. The Godzilla was a different type of Godzilla than you normally see. That's by design. They made it a one-off movie where it's like a horror movie, and this Godzilla is like a mutant that kept changing its form. But you can check out the movie. But the last comment on this whole experience was that here it is. I complain about American movies all the time. I've been basically boycotting Disney for the most part for a bunch of reasons. I have a young daughter, and I'm not taking her to Disney World. We're not watching Disney movies, anything new. And a lot of it's just out of lack of interest on my end for a plethora of reasons we've talked on the show. But here it is, the first time I went to a movie theater and paid, and I did it twice in one day. And the first movie went to a full Chinese movie, and the second movie in the same day went to a full-on homegrown Japanese movie. Not one of them was American. And, after I was driving to see Ernie with the movie, I just couldn't help but to just scoff and laugh at the irony of what was going on.
All right, let me make a comment real quick before you go.
It segues into our show.
Anytime there's a Godzilla movie where you got, Phranq's got to go see Godzilla, so I go see Godzilla and we hang, and, it's cool, just to hang out with Phranq. Well, the girls, they want to suffer through that crap. So Savarda and Donna and his 8-year-old daughter Phaedra, went shopping and did girl stuff for a couple hours while we were doing that. Then we go to the what do they call it? The rainforest restaurant of whatever, and they had the cyclone, 78-mile-an-hour winds you'd experience in the tube for $5, and watch Phaedra's hair get blown all over the place, along with Phranq's ponytail gets all messed up. So it was, it was fun. Now, the movie, he warned me it was going to be kind of a political thing. Well, radiation created, and then it morphed in, kind of, and you got the monster Godzilla. That wasn't really the point of the film. What the point of the film was the bureaucracy and the hierarchy of Japanese politics. And, how they get a permission slip from somebody and deciding who the Americans are going to say in the military, and are we allowed to use our own defense military against military and civilian to go after this big existential threat of the monsters breaking up Tokyo. And go, I don't know. We got a permit from the United Nations of the U.S. government of the what? So it was all this nuanced political permission slip. There definitely wasn't a Trump in the bunch, okay? Now, this was made in 19 or something. It was before COVID. And it was, the whole flavor of it was really directed at the Japanese people of how, really, is this what we got to deal with? Is this, what we can expect when there is a Fukushima, when there is a real threat, when there's an invasion of, when there's a, how much of this crap are we willing to put up with? So you could see it was kind of a psyop-y thing. It was kind of a general public opinion. This is what injecting into the mindset of Generation Next in Japan about how their government really worked, how you change, because they had all the people that were, their helicopter went down and this building fell on and they died. The next generation of politicians, are they going to go through the party structure? Are they going to create? So this was way more political than it was a horror movie, or a Godzilla movie. So it was very interesting to watch that dynamic of the culture of Japan and how they see themselves and the role that their governments and their military plays in society in comparison to being part of the globalist, U.S. UN government kind of bullshit. That's what I got out of it. And at least I got something out of it, And it was, it was entertaining, but that was probably what got me more engaged in the movie, was learning something about how they perceive their government and how people make decisions in that country and how many, non-decisions that are made. Now when you get, to America, it's probably the same thing, same crap. I mean, whatever. Government, what it reminds me of was Winter Soldier, the Captain America movie, that Marvel, where they're trying to get them to collectivize behind the Wachovia Accords of we control you from up top. And Captain America is like, no, I'm not having anybody else decide what I do to save people's lives or do what I think is the right thing. And from that moment on, you never saw that again. Maybe in Civil War, some other Marvel, at the end game of the Marvel movies, it was over. This mindset, we do good for good, and we're, here we are, the save the day, Captain America, that was gone. Now it's committee, now it's UN, now it's all that kind of. That scene from Captain America went viral inside the Ron Paul Revolution. I remember when that happened. We made a big deal out of it. Michael Nystrom from Daily Paul, I encouraged him to watch it and give a review on it. And everybody, wow, them days are over. And it was the mindset that you take personal responsibility for yourself, your community, your country, your fellow man. That has been beaten out of us. And this Godzilla movie was a really good example of that. There was not that character. There was not that legacy. There was not that heritage. It's all by committee. And that's what I got out of it. How far off am I, Phranq?
Yeah, well, you're kind of saying what I was just saying earlier. And It's more about it's a political movie disguised as a Godzilla movie, absolutely. And so much of it is about culture, and the culture changes, and the hierarchy and the ageism, and it's something the Japanese are wrestling with today. I mean, technology is affecting all of us in different ways, but the Japanese culture is getting hammered with it a little bit harder for these kind of reasons. So yeah, it was a magnifying glass to the government, and also when they made the movie, what you have to realize is that the best Godzilla movies they're horror movies, but they're really exposés or a kind of a magnification on Japanese issues. I mean, the first Godzilla, of course, was about the nuclear bomb and nuclear experimentation that was going on, out was the Falklands or wherever it was, the Bikini Islands. They were, doing experiments. So that's where the first Godzilla came from. It was a warning not to the Japanese, but to the world that, before the internet, they didn't really experience secondhand of what happened during the war. It wasn't like you have drone footage from the Gaza Strip talking about, what's going on right now, So they had to show it in a different way to talk to other cultures and other countries where the Japanese were still the bad guys. That, hey, okay, fine, maybe we weren't the best of friends during World War II, but still what you did was wrong, and here's some of the ramifications. So that was that. And some of the best of the Godzilla movies have something to say. This movie, and the last point, but we didn't have a chance to talk about it from the movie theater, was a response about the tsunami that took out there was a Fukushima, yeah, the Fukushima nuclear plant, right? And then, of course, the nuclear meltdown, everything that was going on. But it wasn't just the nuclear meltdown from the tidal wave and not being prepared, but also was the response from the government from that event. That's like their version of Chernobyl in many ways. But it's not just the event, it's the response. And so that's why the first form of Godzilla, not to be spoilers, but it starts off every time people see this movie, they say, what the heck is this? This isn't Godzilla. This strange, like, slug kind of thing comes out of the ocean and has these big, googly eyes, and everyone thinks it looks odd, which it does, on purpose. So it's this strange form that comes out. But when it does, it's on its belly, and as it's going, it's creating sort of like a tsunami. It's creating this water wave pushing through the city, and you're seeing a lot of imagery that's exactly what you saw on the cell phone footage from the tsunami. It's the exact same thing. So it's just like after 9/11, we had all these buildings collapsing that started looking a lot like 9/11, right? So that's what that was about. And then you start to see the response of the government and how slow and behind they were, and how also that they were not keeping up with the technology of how quick information goes. The young people were communicating with themselves, and they essentially disconnected from the Japanese government because they're so bogged down in bowing and their hierarchy and saving face and the way the whole thing works is that by the time they even had a decision made, I mean, this is like our own government, the story's already mutated. I mean, literally in this case, 5 times more. And so the youth were busy, using TikTok and Instagram and discussing and figuring out how to escape and figuring everything out on their own. So yeah, there was a lot packed into that movie, that social commentary that means a lot more for the Japanese. And it was such a big movie when it came out. Ernie wouldn't know this, but most of all of the actors in this movie, and most of them had bit parts. They just would play a cabinet secretary for like 2 scenes. But yet, almost every actor in that movie is a famous Japanese actor, and most of also had been in prior Japanese movies. They may have played a 22-year-old in some cheesy Japanese movie from the 60s, but they'll play a colonel or something in this movie. So it was like a grand party celebration or a reunion for all the Japanese people coming in, and you wouldn't know because it's filmed like it's in real time, with handheld footage and almost like a reality show in a sense in a movie. So yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you finally got to see it. And I thought, my God, they're actually playing it in the theater. So why not? So it worked out.
We asked it. The guy that took, Phranq was late because he's always late. So I got the tickets, and the guy that sold me the tickets when we went out after the restaurant and everything, and all 5 of us were coming out, he was standing there waiting on a ride or something. And we asked him. I go, how popular is the movie? Yeah, a little bit. But the Chinese movie that he was talking about, yeah, that's getting a lot of attention. I had never heard of it. Billions of dollars this thing is made right away. There is an enormous market out there worldwide for quality escapism, entertainment, freaking decent movie. And our delve into culture, pop culture and movies and Disney and all that kind of stuff has been way in advance of the free market going, they suck. We are done. I wait. When it's $3.99, I'll watch the movie here at home. It's rare that I'll go. The only movie I went in the past year or more has been F1 with Brad Pitt. That was a good movie. It wasn't a great super anything. It was just good movie. Just a good movie. And I'm going, God, they can do it. They just don't. Why? Because they're so worried about shaping general public opinion to be whatever the hell it is that those want or are willing to fund. And it is just so sad. So, what's going to happen? I don't know. But it's going to be Generation Next is going to decide. And it's going to be just with opinion from influencers that are able to break through all the censorship and the controls, that is going to be real basic fundamental human stuff about not dying, being well fed, being self-sufficient, being Americans. And there was one commercial, commercial they have, we just can't stop being Americans. We're America. There's a parachuter holding, a big American flag. That's what's coming. And that's what we're preparing for. And that's what, if you listen to this show and the Trump Report, we kind of done that America thing, which is a mindset. All right, we got to go, man. Peace.
See you later. Bye.